Hi, guys, and welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. I'm your host, Moose, and this is my producer, Nick. Our main discussion is about Islam in the 21st century. However, we will critique other religions and ideologies. We condemn any form of discrimination, violence, misogyny, slavery. We do, however, embrace many perspectives and free speech if it is factual and correct, and not based on any hate. Throughout the show, we will be exploring different religious beliefs, practices, and their impact on society, ranging from politics, interpersonal relationships, and mental health of believers and non believers. We hope to create an open dialogue for those who feel they're not heard, especially those who have doubts and have left their belief systems. If you are interested in exploring the complex topic of religion and wish to be part of an honest and open dialogue, this is the show for you. We also welcome feedback and discussion from our audience and listeners. The Gin and Tonic Show is a free speech platform where you can express your ideas without any fear of violence and repercussions or any consequences. Please do join our discussion in the live chat as well as the comments. Thank you for stopping by and enjoy the Gin and Tonic Show. Good evening and welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. I am your host, Moose. I am joined by a very well mannered, very well cultured. He will come into your nightmares and complicate things. Please welcome Culture Ginny.
Hello, I'm here to complicate things.
He's not only going to complicate things, but he will challenge your extreme beliefs or biased thinking by playing the devil's advocate.
A correction, I will be playing Iblis's advocate here.
Yeah, Iblis's advocate. Okay, just to be clear, it's not the devil; it's Iblis. We have to be. What do you call it? Exact to the Lord.
Precise in our language. I'm very legalistic like that.
Yes.
Also,
Yes.
sometimes when I'm not being the advocate for Iblis, I'm also the advocate for Islam and Muhammad.
I mean, you're also the advocate for Angel Jibreel as well, too. So I feel like
through that too.
Yeah. So I feel like you're more an advocate for Jibreel than you are for Islam sometimes. But then again, like, I don't know. Like, we'll have to experiment with this. We'll have to experiment. And no, I'm not gonna make Ginny do any horrible things.
I have many clients who I represent.
Yes, you have many clients. You're the advocate in the legal field. Now, by the way, do check out Ginny's channel. Ginny's channel's the humanities channel, Culture Ginny. Search him up on YouTube, and so he's done some amazing videos. His most let me actually check his most recent one is called the wait, I'm just waiting for the page to load. 1 second. Culture Ginny. There we go. So yeah, so he does Arabic Sicily. So 1 second. Let me just share the screen so that for the viewers, so that they can see your channel. And please, Ginny, do not hit me with a copyright strike, please.
No, I will not.
All right. So here is Ginny. He talks about Islamic Sicily. And this is one of the few areas of Islamicate history that is rarely talked about or not talked about as much. in compared to, let's just say, Al-Andalus, as Ginny and I were last time discussing, because Al-Andalus tends to overshadow this period of the Islamic Empire's rule, which was the conquest of Sicily. And this was not just under one dynasty, but it was under two dynasties. So we had like three. So Aghlabids, Fatimids, and I think, was it Abbasids? Abbasids, right?
The Aghlabids were officially a vassal of the Abbasids.
Yes.
They paid their, paid lip service to being under the Abbasid caliphs, but in reality they were more or less independent. Then the Kelbids, the Fatimids and the Kelbids took over the island. And the Kelbids were given power to kind of govern, and then they became gradually more and more independent as well.
Yes.
And then you had a rebellion on Sicily.
Yeah.
Which ended with a lot of minor emirates there fighting against each other. And then you had the Normans invading.
Yeah, so now that I didn't know, trying to imagine the mafia not being kept very hard after the Godfather films. Oh, of course, it's going to be very hard.
Actually, the word mafia is actually taken from Arabic.
No way!
It is. I mean, you have a lot of Arabic loanwords into into Siciliano, the language or dialect of Italian spoken on Sicily.
Yeah, like especially like we know of Al-Andalus and the Spanish influence, the Arabic influence of Spanish, but I did not know it had the influence on Sicily as well to like this much. And the word mafia, like what was the root word for the word mafia?
I'm not entirely certain. I do know that I'm not entirely certain what the what the original Arabic word is. But I've heard that it is a word that comes from Arabic originally.
This is something we can actually dig into like later. And like, once like probably next show or like another show, we can actually like find out. But yes, so by the way, this is why this is a shout out to Culture Ginny. He does describe some loans like to the Sicilian rule, like what influences the Arabs had over Sicilian rule, like towards the later Catholic rulers. So this is definitely an interesting video. Highly recommend checking it out. I'll put the link here as well so that you guys can check it out yourselves. So I'm just going to put the link here as well, like so, just showing the link here. And yes, so now that we've given Ginny the shout out that he deserves, now time to bring out the cringe moment. I remember last time, Ginny, we were doing 23 criticisms of the Quran debunked, so to speak. And I think we only finished half of them, but we wanted to finish the rest. But I think the issue so far, at least from what from what our observation was, is that the criticisms he's debunking, so to speak, aren't so much criticisms, but more or less,
you're stating this mythology is wrong, more or less.
Yeah. I feel like it's more of a mockery thing. It's
more of a mockery.
Yes. So it's not so much a criticism. So I'm like, and also a lot.
Mockery is a type of criticism, but I don't think this is a very productive criticism.
Yeah, it's not very productive. It's kind of going for very low-hanging fruit, you know what I mean? And at the same time,
it's not even that. It's sometimes, when you're talking about many of these miracles, the entire idea is that they are miracles.
Well, on top
the issue I would bring up is that they are unsubstantiated miracles.
Yeah, and the thing
not
is
that they are ridiculous in themselves.
Also, we're joined by a Satan, by the way. Sorry to interrupt, Jenny, but we're joined by a Satan. Why is the H?
Issues. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Satan.
Yeah, is this good?
Yes,
Now
this
it's
is good.
good.
Yeah, sorry.
Who this
Personal
troublemaker?
issues. Those personal issues are now done. I'll be more free.
Perfect. Yeah,
Good.
I feel like Shaitan also has personal issues back in Khandak. I mean, no, not Khandak. What do you call it? Hell, or we call it Jahannam. So I think Shaitan is now free from his familial duties, and he's here to join us. So, and of course, you figured out this is Nick. But yeah, right now, what we were, what do you call it? I think the general idea we had, like, I think the general criticism we had of his so-called criticism was that his response was only, "Oh, it's our belief." How is that a response? How is that a good response? And that's what the theme
Moose,
is. So
I watched
far.
the last episode you did. He owned you. Someone got owned here, and it's us.
God damn it. I got owned, didn't I? Fuck. Keep getting owned. Now, we were at 16. Can I see this? 16. So
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala having to force his next one.
Also, like, it's a response to Saya 10, by the way, which is a more, he does more so mockeries, if anything, like especially of biblical Quranic text that is. Who hasn't posted in a while. So, and also it's like the praises to all 23 got debunked by a 16-year-old revert. It's like the kind of cringe comments too. But anyway, let's see what he does next.
In communities, milk from cows' bellies, Quranic facts with which science agrees.
All right, so we've got two here. The first one is referring to Surah Al-An'am, verse 38. Well, Allah...
Okay, so 638, which says, "And there is no creature on the earth or bird that flies with its wings, except they are communities like you. We have not neglected to register a thing, then unto their Lord they will be gathered." Where's the worms? So I don't know where the worms are.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that all living beings are in communities like we are. Now, there is no explicit mention of worms.
Yeah, he's right on that.
But I assume that Saitan just put it in because worms just sound a bit goofy and I think it rhymed. Anyway, so Allah is referring to every single animal and every single living being, saying that they're all in communities similar to how we are. But the verse isn't saying that animals are just like humans, no. Only that there are parallels between the social structures of...
The animal kingdom operates very differently. And there are animals that actually do not live in communities, like pumas and cougars, tigers. They don't live in communities. They're actually lone hunters. So bears, yes, they do not live in communities at all. So I think this is what...
So one might, just as a question, one might also interpret the term community as also as a pair or bonding or having some sort of norms.
That's just stretching it, because otherwise you would say something like pairs, which there is a verse, by the way. Indeed, we have created you in pairs. But even that in itself is a little flawed, because when you look at the lion community, for example, there's 1, 2 males, 7, 8, 10 females. So it's not exactly a pair per se. That's just an example. And natural world operates very differently from, just a singular, like, quote unquote monogamous pair, or like what human standards are. The natural world operates very differently. So yeah, you said, Ginny, I apologize to cut you off. Ginny, you were saying?
Not really saying anything. I was just thinking about this is that I mean we should be somewhat charitable here,
Yeah, no,
to
he's right.
including
Though.
pair bonding.
Yeah, I think I would be charitable in the sense that we're the worms. Like this one doesn't exactly doesn't mention worms per se, but I think he's mocking. Saitan was just mocking the fact that worms are also like solitary animals, depending on like species that is. So again, I'm not a zoologist. But I think that's what he was trying to like mock, is that there's like it's ridiculous because some animals don't live in communities. But yeah, I will give him that like, and he does say this. Okay, it does not say this, but this is a valid interpretation of words, which will make a lot more sense with Cupid.
Of animals and humans, which is true. And you can literally see this with your own eyes. You can see ants, you can see herds of elephants, packs of wolves. I mean, even worms live in herds, according to the...
No, we can consider earthworm behavior as the equivalent of a herd or a swarm. Right? Zerby is recording how earthworms interact with other swarmers, and they notice worms interact with each other in clusters, compact batches. Yeah, so this is definitely a decent response. Has been shown again. This is a recent discovery, though. First time the worm is shown to form active herds. Our results modified the current view that earthworms are animals lacking social. But how recent is this study, though? How recent? So I think it could just be a fairly recent, and the time the video was posted, that was the knowledge of the time. So, yeah. So I think this is fairly okay, that's a decent response.
International Journal of Behavioral Biology. They influence each other's behavior and they use touch to communicate. So Site 10, but it is indeed true that some animals live and thrive on their own without needing a pack. This includes bears, rhinos, leopards, etc. But notice that this verse isn't saying that animals are in communities of the same.
They are. It just says that. They are communities like you. That's what it says. So that's not a good response, dude. It's literally saying communities like you, like humans. They're not like humans at all.
Same species. No, there is no distinction like that. So it would be valid to say that this verse could also...
Sorry, what?
Most, could you please go back to that? I can look into the Arabic script.
The Arabic
I tried to, yeah.
So it would be valid to say that this verse could also be referring to communities made up of...
Back to the verse.
Second. Wait, he says, I'm just going to play it.
They influence each other's behavior and they use touch to communicate. So Site 10, but it is indeed true that some animals live and thrive on their own without needing a pack. This includes bears, rhinos, leopards, etc. But notice that this verse...
Okay, there we go.
Stop.
Like it says, except they are communities like you.
Ila umam, yes.
Yes, right? Yeah, it's literally saying it's communities like you.
Umam communities, yes. I was just wanting to check
confirm
that.
With the Arabic, yeah. No, it's very useful to have someone.
It's hard to me to view it because it's this tiny part of the screen, and my screen isn't that big,
Actually, let me full screen this for you. How about now?
Yeah, I'm seeing it clearly now because I clicked already into Zoom.
Okay.
The fault is on my end. It's just
okay. Yeah. Oh, that's okay. But yeah.
Yes, it is.
It's communities like you, right? And
except
also, the translation
communities like yeah.
Isn't saying that animals are in communities of the same species. No, there is no distinction like that. So it would be valid.
It's not. Yeah, so far not a good response.
To say that this verse could also be referring to communities made up of different species. And if you were to look at it biologically, that is exactly what you see. In ecology, this is the exact word used for a group of species that live in.
So what are you trying to do? So why is he interpreting it as communities of different? I want to hear it again. What the fuck is he saying?
And if you were to look at it biologically, that is exactly what you see. In ecology, no, there is no distinction like that. So it would be valid to say that animals are in communities of the same species. No.
Huh?
But notice that this verse isn't saying that animals are in communities of
It is
It is saying that. Or, yeah.
communities.
Yeah, we have not like.
It is it's literally the plural of umma, community.
Yeah, ummah, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Ummam
of the
is
same
the plural.
species. No, there is no distinction like that. So it would be valid to say that this verse could also be referring to communities made up of different species. And if you were to look at it biologically, that is exactly what you see. In ecology, this is the exact word
All right,
used for a
fair
group
enough. Communities, you could say that it's mixed as well. Yes, it doesn't,
of
you know.
species that live in the same habitat, a community. And you'll see that these communities, directly or indirectly, have parallels with our human social structures. You can see that all the animals depend on each other. The tertiary
That's a food chain, dude. That's not.
That's
a
not
community.
really a community, but
That's
I mean,
a food chain.
it depends upon how you define a community. I mean, you could also make the argument here that they live together, kind of like.
Yeah, but I would say
In the
like
same area.
wildebeest
Yeah.
zebras, for example, they graze the
Yeah.
same grounds.
Yes.
They travel.
And I mean, you do have a lot of, you know, even bacteria are living actually in harmony with a lot of organisms. Because they, for example, our bodies, our human bodies wouldn't live without certain types of bacteria inside of them.
Yes. But at the same time, like what he describes there, this is a food chain, though. This is not a community per
But
se.
I'm just referring to the verse.
Yeah,
I mean, you could make a better arguments for this than what he's doing.
Yeah, like instead, I would use the example of different herds of geese and ducks traveling together, right? Or swans, geese, and ducks. They're similar. They're not gonna they're just gonna travel together, for example, or herd together, or something like wildebeests and zebras. But the thing is, their structures are not like humans, though. Here's also the problem. If you want to go very specific, humans have a very complex structure.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned ducks, though.
Yeah.
Considering some of the associations you have with them in Arabic traditions.
Oh no! What is it? What is in the ducks? What's in the ducks?
Ducks are kind of like not as. It's kind of less bad, but it's similar to the associations we have with regards to black cats.
Really?
In the European Western traditions.
Really?
Yes. If you know, ducks cause bad luck.
Interesting, because I was thinking about a story where before Imam Ali, or the fourth caliph, Ali bin Abu Talib, was assassinated, he was stopped by his pet ducks because he's about to get killed, or like ducks came, you know.
Oh.
And that was like sort of like that could be.
Then this is just something that you know, in certain Arabic traditions has evolved outside of Islamic traditions. Those things happen too. I didn't know if it was. That was why I said Arabic, because I didn't know if this was actually. So it's probably not connected to Islam. But I mean, there are a lot of beliefs about various animals and such in Arabic tradition. And the duck is kind of like seen as bringing bad luck, but also being kind of unlucky and kind of sympathetic also. So it is not exactly like the black cat that is considered more evil. It's more like the duck is a screw up, and being close to it will also kind of like affect you of being it too.
Though like now that you like, I feel like the parallel with Ali being stalked by ducks, or the ducks came in his way before he got assassinated. I mean, there could be some parallel with that. I feel like the ducks could be a sort of like an omen of death, or something horrible about to happen. It could be something like that. So this is very fascinating. So I feel like there might be different lores influencing the Ali's lore as well too. So this is definitely interesting. But yeah, back to here. This is a fucking food chain. It's not a community.
Tertiary consumers depend on the secondary consumers. The secondary consumers depend on the primary.
No, bro, this is a fucking food chain.
consumers and the primary consumers depend on the producers.
This is very different from humans. Humans, this is the economy of humans. This is an economy. There's no, we're not consuming each other. Unless you live in a cannibalistic society, that's a very different story altogether. But you know, we're not,
by the way, listeners, we are not promoting cannibalism on this channel.
Yes, we're not promoting cannibalism. Yes, YouTube, CIA, FBI, like, be warned. Like, we are not. I mean, not be warned. I mean, I'm sorry.
Jesus.
Yes.
Rather.
I mean, like,
oh my non-existent God.
Yeah. So yeah, CIA, FBI, like CSIS, the RCMP, like we're this is just philosophical. We're joking. We're talking. It's philosophical. We're talking theology. We're talking just examples. We're not promoting anything violent. We're not just
wanted to clarify that
Yes.
considering all crazy that people sometimes promote on the internet nowadays.
Yeah, we're not promoting any of that nonsense, any of that garbage. Anyway, let's let me just continue.
And then it also goes the other way. Some producers rely on the feces of the consumers, either to spread the trees or for nutrients to be soaked
Dude, it's a food chain and food web.
up through the ground. And you will see that apex predators, well, it doesn't seem like it, apex predators actually depend on the producers because the producers make the consumer.
Oh no, man. I'm just like,
And yes, pedophiles also depend on the children around them.
yeah, it's
This,
if you
doesn't
look
make any
into
fucking sense.
predators, like,
They're kind of crass, but I mean, this does kind of like point towards the fact that these aren't really communities,
yeah, it's not a
but
community.
just relationships of predation.
Yeah, and it's also
But
like,
I mean, I think what was thought with communities there are like they are created in groups or something, or animals are they aren't just one animal. There are several of the animals.
yeah, I mean, and like I said, I gave a better example of wildebeests and zebras, like that. You can kind of give an argument of like they're of different species as well too, and also the verse doesn't mention different species at all. So
I mean,
I
it's
don't know
kind
why
of
you don't
isn't
care.
it kind of I wouldn't say bad, but isn't it kind of ironic that I, as an atheist here, is actually defending the Quranic verse
Yeah,
against the arguments of the promoter of Islam here?
I know, it's weird, and it's like we're making sense of the verse. We're just looking at what the verse actually says. And sometimes, like, what is the author's intention? Like, it's weird. We're also defending, but also criticizing, but also criticizing him. It's weird. It's a weird circle. Anyway, let's see what it says.
That the apex predator eats. So you can see that without the producers, there would be no apex predator, and without the apex predator, there probably wouldn't be any producers,
Again, not a community.
because then there would be too many consumers that would eat all the producers. There is an intricate balance in place, even if animals are in solitude. If there is too much of one species, then it affects all of the other species in the same community. And you see the exact same thing in human social structures. Sure, it seems like the 50
No,
We're not eating each other. We're not dependent on eating each other or preying on each other. This is not the same thing.
He's taking this verse and dragging out the what it talks about into these extremely far-fetched interpretations.
And I feel like
and it actually makes the Quran seem more crazy than
Yeah, he's
it actually
making it-
is in the text.
yeah, he's actually
This
making it out.
makes the Quran look worse.
But yeah, let's see what he says with human.
year-old billionaire has nothing to do with the 17-year-old McDonald's worker. But in fact, it could be that the 17-year-old McDonald's worker served a coffee or a McChicken to one of the
They're not the same, yo. It's not the same example.
No, they are not the same. I mean, in that definition that you see there in the Quran, I would see humanity itself as a community.
Yes, but we're
I
not.
mean, they are talking about species like communities.
Yeah, it's not talking about. And I'm sorry, but what animal has a billionaire and a McDonald's worker? If you want to go that far, I'm going to give an extreme example. What animal has a billionaire and McDonald's workers? Like, you can make an argument for ants, but even then, like, it's very different, extremely different. And also, there's no McDonald's in the animal kingdom. And also, like, if we also want to use McDonald's in this, are we and the chickens who get killed part of a community that are served in our plates? I don't think so.
Employees of the billionaire, which in turn makes the employee productive and causes the billionaire to make money. This is just one scenario, but you'll see that human social structures work in basically...
I don't know if I'm misusing the terms. I don't really... Wow. Dumbass. He's like, I don't know if I'm misusing the term social structures. I don't really care, but what I'm saying... God, this is not how.
No, it really doesn't. I mean,
man, he just shot himself in the foot. This is not a debunking.
A 16-year-old is debunking us, Moose. Give him a break, all right?
I mean, this you could have just easily said that it's just speaking about, animals, species as being communities in themselves, like being a group.
Yeah,
here we have dogs, here we have cats, here we have birds, here we have elephants, here we have etc., etc. Instead of just doing this far-fetched interpretation to, way out and begin to speak about human communities, interactions, and this.
And also, like, the way he says, I don't know if I'm misusing the term.
I don't really care. That's not a good attitude to have.
Yeah.
You should care if your argumentations are good or not.
Yeah.
Especially if you actually believe in Islam.
Yeah. Like, you should care
if you believe in this, you would actually try to have good arguments for it, because otherwise you might actually lead people astray into eternal hellfire.
Yeah. Again, it's weird that you're...
And if you're leaving people astray, you're also going to end up there if you're not careful.
Yeah, it's so bad. Like, you should care. And the thing is, it's weird that the comments are, like, blindly praising him without catching this crap. And again, even from someone who would defend the faith, this is pretty wrong. As someone who would defend, this is pretty... like a bad, that's not a good attitude to have.
No, it really isn't.
So it's like, it goes to show that, we really need some, like, voices that, like, at least, like, heck, we're actually bringing, it's weird, you and I, and, like, we're actually defending the Quran here. It's weird. So,
I'm going to defend innocence whenever it occurs, even if someone or something isn't innocent elsewhere. I'm going to defend it when they are.
When they are, yeah. And it's like, yeah, and it's such a, like, this is the kind of stuff. I'm sorry, I just want to smack this kid. What the hell? Why would you do this? Like, and again,
no, do not go into violence. Violence is bad.
I know. My inner Muhammad hijab is coming. I'm becoming like Muhammad hijab.
Be careful, or I will come with the Samsung water and the Samsung stick.
Yeah, you would have to. I think I'm handing you both the Samsung water and stick. And again, you have to be there. Just make sure I don't start challenging people to mixed martial arts or professional wrestling or boxing fights.
The exact same way. Like, if there were too many billionaires,
like what Muhammad hijab does. So yeah, I'm not gonna do that.
For example, there would be way more poor people, and in some cases that is what's happening. But you'll also see that if there were too many McDonald's workers, then the people at the top of McDonald's would suffer because they'd have to pay too many wages.
Okay, this is a bad example. Bad.
Oh.
No, now you're just going into economics.
Do you really want to begin that we should begin to talk about capitalism, Marxist theory of labor, exploitation, and a lot of other things here? Do you really want to go into this? Because I can.
It's like the poor people depend on the rich I'm like, why the fuck are there poor and rich people to begin with? It's weird, and it's like, especially like a lot of even certain capitalists would disagree with this too. It's like, you don't want too many poor people. It's bad for business. And yeah, this is gonna be on.
Judah Bides has a comment.
Oh, I want to read this. Why did I laugh? Oh no!
That's kind of harsh, but
I'm not gonna say it. Oh, you know what? I'm not. I'm gonna plead the fifth. I'm gonna plead the fifth. Stop it, dude! Stop it!
it is true. But it's not a good argument against him, because that would be an ad hominem attack.
Hey, Moose.
It's true.
Hey, Moose. Relax. It's his first job, all right? You forgot the fries. You don't have to fucking blame him for that shit. He's working hard.
What's... I don't know, man. It was so bad. Sorry, guys. It just caught me so off guard. This is
Even
so
I
hard.
accept that this was pretty funny.
I'm not gonna say it. Oh, this is, I think.
But I mean, it's not something we should use against him, because that would be an ad hominem attack.
Anybody could work at McDonald's. Just never use that as an insult, please.
You, me, this guy.
Yeah, and here's the thing though. If there's a hell, I am definitely going to it. I am definitely going to this hell because of just for laughing at that. Just for laughing at this, I'm going to hell. Oh my goodness. Damn it, Judah Bides. Anyway, let's continue.
Let's continue.
Marxist theory.
That'd be more.
It was I that wanted to insert the. It was I that wanted to insert the Marxist theory against what he was saying.
Yeah, he's just being a pro-capitalist here, and your inner Marxist is gonna come out. And we're gonna, that meme. It's like my home, and then you're instead like our home. With the with the Russian, with the USSR flag.
Our customers and so on and so on. You see, there are these intricate social structures, both in human society and ecological communities. Now, the next thing, milk from cows' bellies. This is from Surah An-Nahl, verse number 66. Well,
okay, so let's read the verse as it is, the translation. Jenny, you can take the time to read the Arabic itself. And indeed, for you in grazing livestock is a lesson. What's the lesson? We gave you drink that is in there. No, it's not in their bellies. It's not in the bellies, no. Between excretion and no, pure milk, palatable to drink. Here's the thing, though. We domesticated these animals to consume their.
So, Moose, I got a question.
Yeah.
Do cows get periods? Because if a cow's on its period, then the milk isn't between the excretion and the blood at that point.
Exactly. It's not between the excretion, because that's like now the excretion and blood is on the other side.
Unless they mean when they say blood, they mean when like they hold it up by the legs to slice its throat to make it halal. That's where the blood drains out.
Okay,
but that's too much.
Jenny, give me back the Zamzam water and steak. Give me back.
No, I mean, no. That if you want to interpret it, because like it's in between the asshole and the neck, right?
I mean,
that's true.
I interpret this more like they are just saying that, what comes from, we, give drink from what is in their belly, among, among other things like excretion and blood.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like it's kind of produced in
I mean,
glands.
I would just say this, that out from a cow, three things can come out: excretion, milk, or blood
Yeah, but then again, that's
during
like
birth.
yeah, but then also that's the female of every mammal species, though. Almost.
Yes,
This is-
but I mean, we use
Oh.
cows, and it's not even cows here; it's livestock generally.
Yeah, it's generally livestock. So I think people also drink camel milk as well.
It's an'am, not abkar. Sorry, you began to talk about cows, and I just went through and.
Oh yeah, cows we just use as an example, and
But here is here is livestock generally, and
Yeah,
from livestock
yeah.
you get three things.
yeah,
You get, and also just to you get milk, you get excretion, and you get blood. And blood is also usually a stand-in for meat or other things, and life generally as well. So
and also for the milk itself, palatable to drinkers. Here's the problem also with milk, though. We're as adults, especially a lot of adults are lactose intolerant too. So we're not supposed to.
Yeah, but I mean, to be honest to this verse, it's speaking in generalities here.
Way too much general. Again, my criticism.
And I mean, sometimes you're. Would you? I mean, sometimes you have to be allowed to speak in generalities. Even God should be allowed to do that, because you can, pickpocket every little exception.
Now,
And
but then it's like when you're like a deity, right? And it's like you have to leave no room for error. That's where I would agree to disagree. Is that as a deity you shouldn't have any like errors, like especially when you claim.
I mean, this statement isn't wrong. I mean, if you think about it, and I mean that if you imagine here, and indeed for you in regard to livestock is a lesson or an experience. We give you drink from what is in their bellies,
but
among other things like
historically,
excrement and blood.
Yeah, but again, my thing
milk.
is historically
Pure.
we had to domesticate cattle. We had to domesticate. So it wasn't necessarily God given per se, because we.
I mean, if you take the Quranic account that God created the universe, then it was given to us.
Yeah, but if you're, let's just say, going through, like, for example, evolution or how humans evolved, then it would seem very different.
But that's on a more basal level where we get the problems. Here it is still coherent with the great narrative. All right.
Yeah, I think that's what you're saying. It's like it's consistent with the narrative, but like in terms of what do you call it, actual like facts or history, or like it gets more, we had to like domesticate a lot of animals. Like horses weren't given to us, dogs weren't given to us, cattle wasn't given to us. We had to domesticate certain animals to exploit them, so to speak. So, and we are technically exploiting the animals, if you also want to go to the vegan argument. So,
by the way, also this among other things, why I think this translation of the word is also bad, is that it is not palatable. It rather is khalisan sabiran, which is pure and abundant. Li nashribina.
Okay, so it's
in order that
right. Okay.
No.
Say the word again. Khalisan and khalisan.
Lil Sharibin is what is written. Sorry, I looked at it wrong again because it little screen.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
Lil Sharibina. So khalisan sabiran, pure and abundant for the drinkers.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes.
So Lisharabin. Yeah,
So it's
double.
pure and abundant. I wouldn't say so. Palatable is a wrong translation. You would say abundant. I mean, abundant makes a lot
Yes.
more sense, though. Abundant makes a lot more sense than palatable.
Yes.
Sometimes not necessarily palatable because you also have to like kind of pasteurize the milk and to make it safe for consumption. Because sometimes it's not safe for consumption.
It's so sorry. Sometimes I had just read up here, and I said, "What?" And I forgot that the translations were palatable. So when you were speaking about, oh, but not everyone can drink milk, so why would they say that? And I asked why it doesn't say that, but it just says that you can get abundant
Mhm.
milk. Oh, and then I looked at the translation below. Oh, yeah, right. So
Yeah. Yeah,
sorry,
yeah, no worries.
I'm
No
sometimes
worries.
getting confused because I'm only reading the Arabic one.
Yeah. So yeah, also like confirm also. Yeah, I would say the translation. You're correct. I think in that the translation there's a bit of a what do you call it discrepancy between the translation and the actual Arabic, so to speak. So
Yeah.
anyway, let's see his argument. Let me see his argument.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "For you in grazing livestock is a lesson. We give you drink from what is in their bellies between excretion and blood, pure milk palatable to drinkers." Now, in order to understand what this verse is actually talking about, we need to look at the biology of how milk is made. So after the cow has eaten its food, which mostly consists of difficult to digest fibers such as cellulose and other complex polysaccharides, the food goes into the rumen and the reticulum, which are respectively the cow's first and second stomachs. Here, food is further broken down by microorganisms into slightly smaller and simpler fibrils. This is also where the cow chews its cud and, chews their partially digested food again, and then it goes back into their stomach. After a while, this passes into the omasum and then the abomasum, where the food is chemically digested and all the microbes from earlier are killed. After this, the food goes into the small intestine, and this is what the Quran is talking about. In cattle, there's a lesson. Allah gives us to drink from what is in their bellies between excretion and blood. So there are two things to note here. Firstly, the word belly is actually referring to the entire abdominal area of a cow, which includes the udders and the digestive system. Secondly, between excretion and blood is actually referring to the origin of the milk being from between the cow's intestines and the blood. Because the Arabic word fardin
Doesn't say intestines though.
can be translated to excretion, bowels, intestines.
Is this correct though? Can it be translated to bowels?
I mean, I'm not certain, but I have seen it just as dung or excretion.
Yeah. No, like it's.
But it could be that the original root has to do with something inside the body or something like that.
Yeah, and the thing is, we give you drink from what is in their bellies. Like the thing is, milk, even though it could have been a lot more specific, because inside the belly there's also like food that's getting digested. It's a lot more complex. Like there's different organs, and so that's it. Like that's where I think let me on. Actually, you know what? Let's see here what he has to say.
Digested food and so on. But to understand this, we have to go back to the biology of milk production. So the food is now in the small intestines, right? And thanks to the earlier steps, most of the food has been digested into smaller, simpler biomolecules, such as mono and disaccharides, glycerol, fatty acids, and so on. And from here, the semi-permeable membranes of the cow's villi in the small intestines absorb these molecules by active transport. And then the capillaries inside of these villi collect the biomolecules and transport them to the udders by the blood. And here, of course, the molecules get processed into milk by the mammary glands inside of the udders. So subhanAllah, you can see the complexity of something that seems as simple as milk, but alhamdulillah, it's amazing. But yeah.
Oh no. Well, so what's your response? Like, why are you saying alhamdulillah? Like, that's not a good response.
Let him continue a bit.
Yeah, let him continue.
Yeah, you can see that these biomolecules were absorbed by semi-permeable membranes between the intestines and the blood. This is exactly what the verse is talking about. But if we were to further analyze the Arabic, you'll see that the word used for between is baini, which is used for two things being spatially between each other, but it is also used to express the idea of bringing two things or people together. And we can see that the digestive system and the blood cooperate in the production of milk.
It could be used also because it's from before.
Yeah.
Min baina, from between, or it could also mean from among.
Okay, so it's not exactly saying, it could also not necessarily mean between, that is.
Yes.
So it
I
could also-
interpret it more as among
yeah,
dung and blood.
yeah. So it's like, that's where it's, you know, like the worst interpretation, like that gets thrown, like how you're seeing
I
it.
mean, because you know, dung and blood is also what exists in the belly. So
Yeah.
you know, so
It's
that
like-
that was my interpretation, and then I got kind of confused also when you began to talk about palatable. What and Sebiran?
Yeah.
And then I found out that Sebiran they had translated into
Palatable.
palatable.
Yeah,
rather
and
than
that's
abundant.
where my because that's where my concern was, is that milk isn't exactly palatable per se, and
And then I also misread the Sharebina, like Linashrebina.
yeah. So if no, that's okay. That's okay. I think we both got confused because like I'm reading the English and you're reading the Arabic, so that's okay. But yeah, I think
Because sorry, my screen is a bit,
no worries.
you
No
know,
worries.
small.
Yeah, no worries. By the way, sorry,
So I have
Nick,
to zoom sometimes.
sorry, wait, where did the shaitan go? I thought the shaitan was supposed to be here. Where did he
Yeah,
go?
he left.
Oh, okay, because I think he had to leave. Okay. Yeah, so here in the comments, Jinni mentions abundant and the Arabic term for it. So it's not palatable, it's abundant. And also, I think, though, here's the thing though, it's the verse is oversimplified. It's an oversimplification. It's not as
It's a simplified, but I don't think it's wrong in any way. So it's just
but it's like, I feel like it's oversimplified, and then you have to explain it. It's kind of like, yeah, that's not exactly, you're not exactly debunking a criticism per se, but at the same time, like how Shai 10 put it, I think he's just mocking. He just mockingly put a package of milk. That's it's not exactly a final product per se. That milk still has to be like, processed. That is, and also that milk is not necessarily made for humans. It's made for the calf. So so that's where,
but again, according to the Quranic Islamic narrative, God created the animals for mankind.
yeah, and that's where it's like, no, it's not created for mankind. That was not supposed to do this. We're just exploiting this. We're just exploiting this process. So there's a lot of layers we can actually like look into this, and it's just, you're looking at it from like, I mean, not me. We like when we say like, oh, it's consistent with the belief, but it's like, no, we had to like beat nature to death or kind of strangle it and make it do our bidding. The Lord didn't do that. If he actually created this, he would be very mad at us for this. He'd be very mad if assuming there's one. So, or there's a few gods. Again, we're not certain. But yeah, let's see.
Yes, it happens in the belly because at the time of revelation, this was the general word used for the abdominal area, including.
Okay, like,
I mean, literally, batten is is from a root, meaning interior, coming having its most basic meaning of interior.
yeah. At the same time, when you're saying like it's knowledge of the time, it's like, okay.
So you could say from their insides.
Yeah, but at the same time, now you're saying like the God or the author of the Quran is limited to the knowledge of the time, so you're kind of like also weirdly digging yourself into the hole. Again, I might be being a bit harsh, but you're also digging yourself in a little bit of a hole. So you can't just say this is a book for all time, but then say it's got the knowledge of the time, And also, if it were like, so to speak, like the process.
I'm not sorry. I'm not seeing really the issue here. Most.
Yeah, like
I'm not. The issue here is that I'm not seeing this. This is just stating, very basic things like, oh, inside the cow's, bellies are milk, or not, Lord, inside the cow, just in the insides of the cow. It's
Yeah.
milk, excrement, and
Yeah.
blood. It's
Yeah.
not really,
It's something
something.
special.
It's not revolution. No, it isn't.
Yeah. So it's like why does this need explanation, or like why does this need defending? At the same time, like, it's just
This is just the Quran doing its usual of stating something obvious in nature
yeah.
and
So
kind
it's
of like implying, be grateful to God for this.
yeah. So it's like it's not like saying anything revolutionary, because like I said,
But
been
it's not
out-
wrong either, so I would just pass this, off.
Eh.
And
Yeah, it's not completely wrong, but also it's kind of like it's kind of like an point.
including the others, and I think it still is today. So, subhanallah. And actually, Sai 10 did say that these are Quranic facts with which science agrees. Both of these, he's correct with
Oh,
both
God.
of these. These are indeed.
Stop. I mean, this is so basic that everyone at that time also knew this.
Yeah.
Sorry, I mean, everyone that has had livestock knows that livestock will have excrements, be shitting all over the place, and they will have blood, because sometimes they will be injured and you will slaughter them and you will see their blood and flesh.
Yeah.
And free, that they also produce milk. This could be goats as well, and not just cows. This is livestock generally, and goat milk is also eaten.
Yeah.
And same
Yeah.
thing with camel milk and
Camel milk. Yeah.
cow's milk. I mean, this was common knowledge even at that time. This isn't a scientific miracle.
I know. And you know what? And when
This is just basic animal husbandry knowledge.
yeah, and the thing is, when he says Subhanallah, and it's like, no, you don't have to be a believer to know this stuff, So the verse isn't wrong. It's just like you don't have to know biology to know this. And
No.
And I think the there's also, like, what would have been very special, like what would have been kind of revolutionary, if the Quran warned that do not burn a fire near like livestock in an enclosed space due to methane gas, because they do cause explosions. So I'm not explosion, but yeah, there's methane gas is very flammable, what I've heard or what I've seen. So, and that's a big hazard in itself too. That would have been something.
You should also not place a fire near livestock, because it might frighten them.
That's true. Also, yeah, don't do that. Okay, yeah. And also, we're not promoting.
Actually, there are wrangling methods or herding methods of actually lighting fires to actually herd the animals in certain directions.
Yeah, though apparently, like, it's still not recommended because of the, there's certain hazards carried with it too.
I mean, you can go around with a torch and threaten the animals to move.
Yeah,
by
just don't bring it near their buttholes, please. Do not do that. Do not do that.
No. Oh.
Yeah, especially because apparently, like, there was What Top is a channel I follow, and he was talking about like how certain like flames were caused due to, like, in cow farms, that is, because of the methane gas, or some farmers have died because of it too. So yeah, that would have been very, like, interesting knowledge to have. So, but yeah, like, this is kind of like, this is not subhanallah, like, whatever, we're here, it's cows from Belgium. Okay, like, sure.
Need Quranic facts with which science agrees. Next one.
Semen comes from between backbone and ribs.
Okay.
Oh no, he's gonna go there, isn't he?
This is one of the most common criticisms, and it comes from Surah At-Tariq, verses 5 to 7. Well,
okay. Verses 5 to 7. So let men observe what he was created. He was created from a fluid ejected, emerging from between the backbone and the. No, it's not emerging from the backbone and the ribs. The sperm doesn't come from there. Oh man.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, let man observe from what he was created. He was created from a fluid ejected, emerging from between the backbone and the ribs. So the criticism here is that the Quran says that the semen was created between the backbone and the ribs. So this criticism assumes that the fluid in question is semen, and that semen is the thing that comes from between the backbone and the ribs. And we'll talk about this in a second. All right, so there are three valid ways to look at this first. For the first one, you can say that the fluid in question is...
So what else is it then? If it's not semen, what other fluids are there? Enlighten us.
Sperm, and yeah, sperm is made in the nuts, which are anatomically below the backbone and the ribs. However, after sperm...
Yeah, no, that's a poor argument though, because if the Quran had said it's with the testicles, then yeah, that would have been accurate. But that's also basic knowledge too.
Spermatogenesis, the sperm moves up from the nuts through the epididymis and up through the vas deferens, or the sperm duct. And then this goes up near the seminal vesicle. Now, the seminal vesicle is very important here, because the seminal vesicle contains the majority of the fluids that are ejected during ejaculation. And it acts mostly as a vector for the sperm, and also contains molecules that keep the sperm nourished and alive. Now, anatomically speaking, the seminal vesicle is between the backbone and the ribs.
No. I mean, it is, but it's like, just because it's in the location doesn't mean it's correct. Like, it's not correct. Like, if it said testicles, because people knew nuts existed, people knew that. So
I mean, they could have even looked into this thing too. They could have opened up a body.
Yes.
I'm seriously, as long as, these things are vague enough and also commonly, easy enough to know without very advanced techniques, I would just put it up to these people actually knew this, and the Quran is just speaking about common knowledge.
Yeah, but then again, like, it's not between the backbone and the ribs. Like, if you're saying backbone and ribs, that's very inaccurate, because that would be in the testicles. It's not exactly between. It's like way below the backbone and the ribs, and where the organ is located.
Assuming that included in between the backbone and the ribs is between the backbone and anything that is parallel to it and the ribs. So the penis,
it's not saying parallel,
is parallel to the backbone, and the seminal vesicle is above the penis. Therefore,
the ribs are nowhere near this, by the way. The ribs are nowhere fucking near this.
Or the seminal vesicle is between the backbone and the ribs.
Okay, it says here in the seminal vesicle.
Sulb is also just the breast.
Yeah,
so sometimes it's just.
But even then, it's like, it's not exactly between. And if it's like looking at like the breast and like, or it's between the front,
or rather, it's the loins. I'm sorry, I fucking. Oh,
sorry,
backbone loins. I just find gutting. Oh.
You okay?
Sorry, I'm getting confused when I'm trying to. This argumentation is making me confused, and I'm getting that all.
Oh, with the Arabic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is the breast, and or there, and sulb, or salb is the backbone, or loins sometimes too.
One second. It says or loins, and there's also like sapiens in the or loins and the ribs. But even then, like, does the Arabic say loins?
Yes, it can be that too. It's
the
lower area.
Yeah, but it's still like not accurate. Like, it's one of those things that a lot of people, we've mocked it to, like, what the hell? Like, why are you saying backbone and ribs? And also like so it's definitely like a very weak response. Like,
I would interpret this more as between the end of your ass and your breast is the penis. I mean, this yes, true.
I mean, you're actually helping the Quranic author make it better, though.
Yes, I mean it's just like again, this is stating clear things.
And it's nothing special, but also at the same time, it's also wrong when you say translate it as backbone and ribs. So it's like, yeah, this is just obviously wrong. But like, I like how they go so far as to defend, like, oh, it's in the backbone. No, 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 no. Don't even go there. Like backbone and ribs. It's like the testicles are nowhere near the ribs. Let's face it, the testicles are nowhere near the ribs and backbone. Even if you argue it, they're between them because of the locations. Like, no, the testicles are closer to the anus, closer to the hips.
See it like this: between your lower and upper body.
That would have been a much better explanation, honestly.
Yeah, that is how I interpret it.
Yeah, that would have been a much better. But when you kind of bring in the backbone and ribs, then it's like, okay, now you're just being hella inaccurate at this point, and now you're using science to try to justify it. It's like, no,
I mean, the problem here is also that the Tara'ib is not a normal, word for breast. Usually you use sadr in Arabic.
Right. So you don't even use that for breast normally. It could be used as breast, but not normally, necessarily.
Yeah, so I mean, the Quran is filled with these very unique words sometimes.
Yeah, I mean,
or words from roots that are not even commonly in use in other types of medieval Arabic.
So it's, if anything, like it's this with the wait, what is it? Seminal vessel contains a majority fluid release from dude, at least check your spelling. Ejaculation with ejaculation.
Don't be like that. We know what is written. Don't be spelling the N-word. The evil people that lived, the evil people that were active in the 30s and 40s in Germany. Do not be a spelling and
a spelling grammar Nazi.
Yeah.
All right.
You said the word. You will have to stand for YouTube now banning this video.
I'll stand. I'm sorry, you.
Because you can't mention that, and neither can you mention the other N word either.
I know. There's two N words we cannot use anymore. All right. I won't be a grammar dictator. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
All right.
Spelling dictator.
And there are three. Another way to look at this.
Okay, he says this one is super weak, but my opinion, but I added on. Okay, let's hear this.
This is that the fluid in question is referring to the woman's eggs, which are created above the vagina, which is parallel to the backbone, and are then ejected as a gushing fluid during menstruation. And the third interpretation is that yes, humans were created from a gushing fluid. This could have been sperm or it could have been the eggs. However, the next verse isn't actually referring to the fluid.
So what is it referring to then? That's a very weak argument. Like, it's semen or eggs, and even then, that's not near the that's the process is completely different. It would have been talking about the womb because the Quran does mention the womb a few times, so it would have not been saying that. It would have said you're created in a womb. That's like the Quranic author would have said that. And second, like, it is the word, literally the verse follows it, emerging from between. It's talking about the fucking fluid. So that's very weak. And I think he admitted that this is weak.
It's actually referring to the human that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about, right?
How did no. It's talking, it would have mentioned it. It would have mentioned the human. Like, that's like, you can't say the Quran is clear and then add your own little details into it. That's just dumb.
I mean, you could. I mean, it is Yakhruju. He comes out.
Yes. Yeah, he was created from a fluid, ejected.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and it's like a male human too. So.
Yeah, I mean, and if he comes from the middle of the body, that's right. So, I mean,
But the thing is, the Quran mentions a womb, right? It does mention pregnancy. This is a bit odd. Like, why would
I mean,
it not?
the issue here is how you interpret these verses. If you see them as a continuous sentence over several verses, or if you identify them as separate sentences. Because remember, punctuation did not exist in Arabic at this time.
Yeah,
That's a very modern phenomenon that appears in the 19th century.
but even then, like,
Actually, even in the Western world, it wasn't
Yeah.
until the late medieval period where you begin to see punctuation actually occur in the Western world either.
yeah. So
And in certain areas, it didn't really catch on until several hundreds of years later.
yeah, so given that this is, if it's talking about something else, it seems like a continuation of the topic. So this
So
is a very weak argument that he gives.
I would interpret this. So let us see the human from which he was created.
Mhm.
He was created from a gushing fluid. He comes out, the human, from between the lower and upper body.
That would have been a better either interpretation or wording of it too. The wording. would have
I
been
mean,
a lot-
this is the issue with translations. They either sometimes they can outright mistranslate, but sometimes they can choose words that doesn't sound good in English, or they choose things that sounds good in English but isn't actually what is written in Arabic.
Yeah, I mean that would have been a better translation, but also a better way of wording it. And I feel like, I know you're defending, like, even as a defense of the Quran, that would have sounded a lot better if you think about it, like how you mentioned
I mean,
it.
that's how I interpret the Arabic Quran. Here.
But like when it says, like, it was created from a liquid ejected, emerging from between. Now the liquid is emerging from between. It's not even like what is emerging from between the backbone and the ribs. It's talking about the liquid. So that's where it's like, that's completely wrong. If it were saying the human emerges, like it should have added a few more words.
I mean, the Dafik is more like gushing.
Yeah,
It isn't, mukhraj, ejected,
yeah.
or
Dafik gushing. Yeah, the translation isn't ejected; it's gushing fluid.
Yes, that's kind of like my point. I mean, you could say interpret this as ejected, but I would say gushing is a better translation of it.
I've seen an older translation
Because it's like Narun Dafikun, a river, a gushing river.
Yeah, but it's like it's not exactly like gushing the liquid from between the backbone and the ribs. So it's like, this is, the translation is wrong here, and like so far his response has been very weak to this, extremely weak.
I mean,
And
this
more,
is also an issue when you're a believer in a religion and you can't actually read the original Arabic sources,
yeah,
and you can't actually understand the nuances of them.
Yeah, there's also this issue too. Like you're not an Arab speaker, native Arab speaker, or even if you're like, unless you don't understand the Arabic, yeah, this is where you kind of, this is a blind spot, like you're saying, it's a blind spot that hits. And also, like, it's sorry, I just lost my train of thought. My apologies.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, if you can't actually, and then you make arguments from the translation, which might actually be wrong in itself.
Yeah.
And thus you reproduce that, and it just becomes worse from there.
Yeah, it's this whole rabbit hole, because now I have you who's actually looking in the Arabic, and I'm looking at the English, and now we're looking at so many perspectives. It kind of shows that to the viewers that there's so many holes in the narrative. Wink, wink.
I mean, this is also an example. This isn't a problem with the Quran, but problem with the greater interpretation regarding Islam.
Yeah.
In that you do have this, book, the Quran, this text, this recitation, that apparently can only be understood in Arabic, because if you translate it, these sorts of issues will arise.
But
And
no,
people are
Jimmy,
aware of that. Why, this is also why they want to only keep it in Arabic. But by only keeping it Arabic, you also close off the revelation of God to the rest of mankind as well.
But no, Jinni, it is a clear message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remember, it's clear with no doubt.
Arabiyatun mubinatun. A clear Arabic. It is explicitly Arabic. Arabiyatun mubinatun.
No, Jinni, it's a it's a wrong interpretation you're doing. It's not. It's for non-Arabs too. It's like it's supposed to be
Yes, but
clear.
I mean, this is kind of like the entire issue with this thing is that,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that you can actually do the translations of the Quran much better than it is done here.
Yeah.
But I mean, the issue is still that Arabic and English are fundamentally very different languages. They are from entirely different language families, which
Of
means
course.
that they aren't related at all. They are coming from entirely different language trees means that these, the original languages from where these languages descended were invented separately. They are entirely different lines of languages, which means that they are very different in how they function and in how they imply things, which makes translations between them not impossible, but it makes it very hard, and you will lose things between languages when you do that.
But Jinni, remember, Allah intended this. Allah intended these two languages to be separate. MashaAllah.
Yes.
I know. I know. I'll give you back the Zamzam water and stick now.
Yeah, I was considering throwing the entire bucket upon you.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah.
I mean, this is an example. You can't actually. You can't actually, just say that this is what the Quran says by relying upon a translation always, because translations can be wrong.
Yeah, and I think
can modern Arabic speakers understand the Quran as it is? They could mostly understand most parts of it, but certain parts they would probably get lost, because sometimes the Quran uses very archaic language or very, unique language to it.
Yeah. And it's like it's not, the word isn't used anymore, like you said. The wording is not commonly used.
It's also like the Quran isn't this. It is the same, text, but it's kind of like certain parts are very, uses very commonly used roots, and it talks about subjects that even modern day Arab would understand with good knowledge of standard Arabic. But sometimes the Quran chooses to use very poetic high language, which is almost never used, and you need to have like a background in Arabic poetry to understand it. And sometimes it uses words that aren't even common there.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, I definitely agree with that.
I mean, even the term sirat,
yeah,
the path, isn't a commonly used word anywhere outside of the Quran.
Yeah. No, absolutely. This is so I think the underlying issue, what Jinni pointed out, is that because the speaker here is relying on the translation, he can make errors himself when it comes to defending the text, that is, because the translations aren't exactly accurate, so to speak, or especially how they're interpreted as such. But yeah, let's continue with the video, Jinni. But thank you for the explanation.
Right. It's saying that the human was created from a gushing fluid, and the human emerged from between the backbone and the ribs, which is true because when a woman is pregnant,
yeah, he's going there, isn't he?
The baby is between her backbone and the ribs, and this.
I feel like it would have been a lot more descriptive of the process because the Quran has mentioned pregnancy, like I said.
I mean,
before.
again, this is just the Quran stating the obvious.
Yeah,
This is
and-
completely
Let's continue.
uncontroversial and it is scientifically correct. And as far as I
and he does say, "I don't know this for sure." But yeah,
Fair enough. Let's
Yeah.
continue.
know, this last interpretation is also mentioned in a few tafsirs. Next one.
The night is a veil casting darkness beneath.
Alright, so this one's Surah Al-A'raf, verse
Okay, 754. Indeed, your Allah is one who created the heavens and earth in 6 days, then established himself on the throne.
Oh God! Oh God! This is the throne verse.
Yeah, then he makes the day and night overlap in rapid succession. He created the sun, the moon, and the stars, also directed by his command. The creation, as command, belonged to him alone. And that's like the Dr. Mustafa Khattab translation. Then we have the Sahih International Translation. Indeed, your Lord Allah, He who created the heavens and the earth in 6 days and then established himself above the throne. Oh no. He covers the night and day, chasing it rapidly. And he created the sun and the moon and the stars and subjected by. But here's the problem though. Like the night and day, the reason they happen is because the earth revolves around or rotates on its axis. It's not so much a creation. Night and day are just a result of either sunlight or lack of sunlight. That's literally the difference. So night and day aren't separate entities, so to speak. But let's see what his defense is of this.
number 54, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He makes the day and the night overlap in rapid succession. Now, this is also translated as He covers the night with the day, chasing it rapidly. Both of these are translations of the same thing. And obviously it is accurate because the night does overlap.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, the root for here is Rasha. Wow. Which is kind of like, it's the same root for Rashva, whale. So it kind of, it goes into whaling here, yes.
Wait, whaling?
Yes. The night is a veil casting darkness.
Right. A veil. So it is a veil, basically. It's a veil.
Yeah. I mean, God makes the night into a veil over the day.
Yeah, which, if you think about it, that's not exactly accurate, like I explained.
No, but it's kind of like metaphorical language.
Yeah. It's metaphor, like you wouldn't want to, and I think that's where Side 10 is kind of mocking it. Like, it's not exactly a veil, per se, because, again, the Earth is, like, it's just, like, there's just exposure to sunlight and no exposure to sunlight. That's literally the difference. So that's... but let's see.
Overlap the day, and the day does overlap the night. And this is in accordance with other verses in the Quran, such as verse 5 of Surah.
So he says, and he created the heavens and the earth for purpose. He wraps the night around, and wraps the day around.
You know why I mentioned before the throne verse, the verse before?
Yeah.
That verse is actually kind of infamous because it literally says that, God will now, sit,
sit on a throne. Yeah.
Yes, and
yeah,
that has raised a lot of theological debates.
Yes.
And less than civil debates or less
Right.
than civil, resolutions to those things in Islamic history.
Yeah, and it's like, is there really a throne out there in space? And it just seems like very like someone made a drawing.
The question there is God actually physically on the throne?
Yeah,
But that would imply that he has human characteristics, and there's
Right?
nothing like him.
right.
So there is a conflict to interpret it as, yes, he sits literally on it, but others would say that is shirk because then you're attributing,
Attributing human qualities
elements to him.
to God.
But if you do not, interpret it like that, then you're considered a sinner by those that do interpret it because you are not interpreted
Yeah.
correctly. So
Yeah,
this
I'm
was
just-
an enormously complicated thing that created enormous debate and conflicts during
Yeah,
especially during the 10th and 11th centuries.
Yeah, and like here's the verse. Then established himself on the throne. Another translation says above the throne. But even then, like, why is a throne mentioned?
ثم استوى
Yeah, why is a throne mentioned? That's chapter 7, verse 54.
العرش.
I know.
Throne is al-arsh here. So
Yeah,
it's kind of
yeah,
like
so I know what he's like the speaker here is talking about the knight, but Jenny, you caught on that the throne thing. That's something like if you actually like it's weird. Like you kind of while defending something else, he kind of exposed another thing, which is the throne. And like you said, there have been so many theological debates over this. And even then, like it's that's where the question arises: is there really a throne? Like is he sitting on this throne, or is there a throne out there in space that he sits on?
I mean, yeah, and this has raised a lot of debates, and it's also one of those things where you can actually discuss if. I mean, this is also one of those things that are still not resolved. It isn't like an heated issue, but when I feel that some certain Muslims are kind of like being a little bit too persistent in trying to convert me or acting in certain uncouth ways in discussions.
Yeah.
Instead of responding insultingly, I ask them about the throne.
Yeah.
And some other subjects. These issues that still are even matters of discussion is still in Islamic theology.
Interesting. No, that's an interesting way to like. You've probably been approached by people so you've been approached by people trying to convert you, and then you pose this question about the throne of Allah in chapter 7, verse 54. And the throne has been mentioned a few times, actually, no? In the Quran?
Yeah, I mean, the throne and the hand, there are some other, things that are reoccurring that are...
Yeah, I know. Here's a defense I could come up with it. It's metaphorical, or like it's...
That's the Maturidi defense.
Yeah.
That's the Athari view of it is usually because the Athari traditions aren't one, and the Dahiri is the Atharis are mostly saying that he sits physically on the throne. Those certain traditions there have admitted that it's metaphorical. The Dahiri interpretation, the ones that are
the Amish
the group, yeah, he literally sits on the throne.
I love these Amish guys. I love these guys so much.
the Dahiri Sunnis are kind of interesting.
Oh yeah, for sure. We should dedicate a discussion on these guys too, like the Dahiri group, especially that would also like Duda Baidas said. Is this still a big debate with Islamic scholars today, or is there a consensus now?
As I said before, there still isn't a consensus, but it's not a thing that is as heatedly debated anymore. It's a kind of thing that many Muslims today that are in these kind of theological schools have kind of agreed to not discuss. There isn't a consensus. It's kind of like...
okay, let's talk about other things now. Let's stop fighting.
And some would say, I have no... a defense that I have heard, though, sometimes is also, I have no strong opinion either way.
Yeah.
This isn't an important issue. But in the 10th and 11th centuries, this was an enormously big issue.
And did this cause wars? I'm curious.
This caused... I mean, it caused assassinations. It caused attempts at, it also caused you have to see that this starts during the crisis of the 10th century. The Abbasids have more or less collapsed in a lot of warring factions.
Yeah.
And you also, during this period, is beginning to see the rise of the Shias with the Fatimid Caliphate and with, the Buyids, which are at first Zaydi Shia, but then they convert to 12er Shia.
Yes.
And they also here, so the Sunnis are now getting pressured and getting into the not dominant position. And they at the same time they have these extremely, heated debates and conflicts regarding these issues.
Oh no! Oh boy! And
so much so that soldiers even refuse to fight for the Abbasids.
Interesting.
Citing these issues.
Interesting. Okay, Jinni, this is why I despise the term Islamic Golden Age for the Abbasid period. This is why I despise the term. Because something like this is so overlooked or glossed over, especially in the 10th and 11th century. That's within the so-called what do you call it, golden period, right? Like it's from 758.
Yes, it is.
58. Yeah. So it's like, how is this a golden period? This is kind of messed up. So it's that. So historically speaking, that's why like I also have other channels like Al Hikmah. I think that's what he's called. And I think you as well stated that you dislike the term golden age of Islam because it's a little more complicated than
yes.
That. So, and history is never straightforward. And this is
the interesting thing. Al Hikmah history is actually a pretty good channel. The interesting thing is that he's actually quite conservative, but he's also rather good as a historian too.
Yeah. I mean, Al-Muqaddimah as well. So there's another channel for Al-Muqaddimah as well. He also said that he disliked this term because it wasn't exactly clean and like, golden as people like to present the.
It's a very complex period. And
yes. And there were issues. There were some major issues during this period. So, it's definitely like...
it's kind of like we are looking back at the Roman Empire with very rose-tinted glasses.
Yeah.
But we usually don't really consider how terrifying that, civilization was.
Wait, downright barbaric and savage and psychopathic,
I mean, we do remember the gladiator games, but when we really think about it, I mean, they literally dragged people out to fight to the death at times in the arenas, or to get torn to bits by lions.
Yo, I was like reading about one of the games. Let's not discuss it. I won't go into the details, but it was so disturbing. It was so disturbing. It makes the horror genre, which is shock horror, right? Like the Saw movies and stuff. It makes the Saw movies look tame in comparison. That's how fucked up this is. Like, at least in movies, it's like it's art and it's like, you're editing it, right? It's a lot of fake blood and stuff like that, right?
Also, let's not forget that if you were a father in the Roman civilization, you had the right to kill your children and your wife whenever you wanted.
This is sounding so much like the tribal issues, the honor killings issues. This is sounding so much like that.
It was a matter of honor, and you were supposed to kill your family if you were dishonored as a Roman.
Wow.
And even worse is that you had absolute authority over your children. And by the way, you didn't get emancipated until you were, around 30.
Interesting.
Or you got, married and declared emancipated, or you get a legal. Actually, you didn't get legally emancipated ever from your father, but the principle was that the office of the state, the local, I've forgotten the official for it, would emancipate you by age 30 by pure principle.
Interesting.
So it was kind of like a traditional thing that
Hmm.
never went into law, but it became kind of like this.
It was
what is-
tolerated. It was tolerated, so to speak.
and not really tolerated, but because the official could declare you as an independent man,
Mm,
he had the right to do that,
right.
and
Okay,
and it
okay.
was customarily done at age 30. There was nothing in the law that said he had to do
Yeah,
it, but it was done generally.
yeah.
And sometimes it was actually done at an earlier age when the official decided that I don't like this guy and he treats his kid too badly.
Hmm.
So
I
I will
think-
emancipate him.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
there did exist certain ways against too much. But in theory, you had the legal right to kill your son or daughters and your wife whenever you wanted. In
Mm,
practice, there did exist various social norms against it, and you would face consequences socially, and there did exist certain legal exceptions.
So it was kind of like the culture of honor killing isn't necessarily exclusive to the Arabian Peninsula. This
No, not
Oh.
at all. It has been the standard in most cultures that
Wow.
you kill people over matters of honor, even your own family.
Ah,
It's just that the Romans had a very peculiar way to go about it, and it's rather extreme in certain senses too.
yeah, and that's why we should never look at Rome or the Abbasid Empire with rose-tinted glasses. Yeah,
No,
sorry.
because
Yeah.
and on the subject of looking at rose-tinted glasses, there is also what showed and fall of seppuku. Yes, the Romans were also big into suicide. I've actually written a script already for a video about it that is going to be released in the middle of summer about
and even
Roman suicide.
Yeah, Roman suicide, and even like the Japanese empires too. Like,
Yeah. So the Romans, like the Japanese, actually had ritualized suicide.
interesting, because I discovered
You would actually beg for a cup of hemlock and a special dagger that would be given to you by the state, and people would view you committing suicide on either the square or in the largest building of an assembly,
fuck.
and you would commit suicide in front of a crowd
Holy fuck, that is fucked up, yo.
by first drinking the cup of hemlock and then stabbing yourself with this knife, carving it slowly out.
Wait, so the hemlock kind of like a poison?
Yes, it was to
So-
ensure that you would die.
Because I know English poetry mentions that a lot. Like when I took English literature, there's a lot of mentions of hemlock.
It's a
especially-
reference to, because it was the standard potion for
Mm,
killing yourself in antiquity. The Greeks also, I do think that that was also what Socrates took, if I'm
Mm.
not entirely wrong.
yeah, and I
But-
know in Greek lore there's a lot of also suicide as well too.
Yeah, but the Romans took it to an even further extent. They even
Oh,
ritualized it.
oh,
So you were allowed by the Roman state to commit suicide because suicide was a matter of honor.
yeah,
If suicide was something you did, you were allowed to do if you had dishonored yourself, but not dishonored yourself too much.
right.
So, so there is actually this kind of strange in between, where you should live with your dishonor if you did it too bad, but if you
Yeah.
did it just bad enough, you should kill yourself.
Yeah,
This is a very alien mentality that the Romans had.
and
Sorry,
it's
I
so-
got
I know.
away. I
I
wanted
know,
to say,
I think this is where this insult "go unalive yourself" comes from. I feel like this evolved in a certain way. I don't know. Maybe.
maybe it might just be internet edginess.
Yeah, probably it could also be that.
But the thing also is that speaking about rose tinted glasses, and especially when dealing with Arabic, I've seen so many trying to say oh, Islam, created this new era of oppression. It was so much better when the Middle East or the Arabic religions are so oppressive. With the Middle East was so much better when there were the Egyptians, when there were the Mesopotamians, when people worshipped these polytheistic gods.
It was
Eh.
complicated. It was complicated.
Yeah, I've said I actually prefer the Abrahamic God above
Yeah.
those religions.
Yeah,
And you get into these explanations of how the Baal cult, practiced
Let's
child sacrifice.
Ginny. Let's not even go to the fucking Baal cults. Okay?
It's-
Let's not even
yeah,
go
yeah.
there. Let's not go there. Anyway, back to the
Or
video.
the Ashur blood cults. Let's
Yes.
continue.
Yes. I know. That would make slasher films look tame in comparison. Anyway, so yeah, we were talking about the throne, and that caused like a huge issue, but the issue is the night casting darkness.
It rapidly. Both of these are translations of accordance with other verses in the Quran, such as verse 5 of Surah Az-Zumar, where Allah says that He wraps the night into the day and wraps the day over the night. The word yukawir is used here, which can mean rolling or wrapping, and this is in accordance with the previous verse that I mentioned. And I have to say though, this is probably the weakest thing here. Do you really think that anyone could possibly believe in this? Look at
It's stated that the night is like casting a veil, darkness. So now you're asking us, it's so stupid.
this diagram. Look at this. Do you actually think someone would be, that stupid to believe that? Come on, bro. How can the night be a napkin that? Oh my goodness, bro. Anyway,
that's what it's saying. It's like a wrapping or enveloping.
I would actually be. Seriously, I think he's. You're here to actually argue for Islam. I don't think that this verse is actually that bad.
Yeah, and the thing is, though,
Dude.
Wait, where Dudabite said something?
No, not the Judabite. I meant this dude that we are speaking. His video where he's saying, "Oh, no one would believe this about the blanket." I just think it's allegorical.
You can argue that way. It's allegorical. It's not.
Yeah. And he tries to turn it into something else, which is even more strange. But let's continue.
Yeah, and again, my like I said earlier, the entire someone who's saying, my criticism against the Quran would be the Earth is revolving around its axis, so you want to address that. So that's not something he addressed here.
Anyways, next one.
And the dead can be raised up with slices of beef.
I remember this story. Again, it doesn't say that, but let's see what he says. Again, we'll discuss this. This is going to be a very interesting discussion.
Okay, this one's referring to Surah Al-Baqarah verses 72 and.
So yeah, and this was a famous story actually that I knew of. I even heard this when I grew up as a kid too. And when you slew a man and disputed over it, but Allah was to bring out which you were concealing. So we said, strike him and with part of it. Thus Allah bring the dead to life, and He shows you the signs that you might reason. Now, on paper, this is extremely vague. And there are many interpretations. There's many interpretations that I wanted to talk about, but I want to hear his defense first.
73. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, remember when you slew a man and disputed over it, but Allah was to bring out that which you were concealing. So He said, strike him with a part of the cow. Thus does Allah bring the dead to life, and He shows you His.
Strike him, the slain part of. Does it mention cow? It doesn't mention cow, does it?
Let me look in.
I'm
look zooming again.
Arabic. Yeah, look into the Arabic. One second.
No.
Yeah, I know. Dude abides. Yeah. When did the heliocentric universe become? Yeah. Apparently, there's scholars in Saudi Arabia who still insist on the flat Earth and the geocentric view. But yes, Jin, you were saying?
Does the translation? I'm zooming into the translation now.
Yeah. Like, do you think it's as accurate? Because I don't see a
I
mention.
mean, there isn't a mention in the cow in the Arabic.
Yeah. So, like, again, I know the story comes from the tafsir more so than the actual verse itself.
Then it must be the tafsirs that have added something about a cow. I don't know.
Yeah. You haven't heard of this?
No, I haven't. I haven't
Really?
heard
Okay,
about
so
this at
let me
all.
tell
And,
you.
you do know that I read a lot about theology and Arabic Islamic
no, let me
theology,
tell you
and
the story.
I haven't encountered this.
No, let me tell you the story, Ginny. So apparently there was a story of like a man getting murdered, right?
Hmm.
And they had to find like the murderer, they had to find like a golden cow to slaughter and take the cow's meat, smack it on the dead body. So the body raised up and he pointed to the murderer before it died again. That was the story behind it. And again, I'm stating just the oral story itself. But yeah, what do you think? What are you thinking right now?
I'm thinking that is an additional addition to this.
Oh yeah, for sure. I did not know it was from a tafsir until I read it later. It was from a tafsir, and I'm not sure if it's a mainstream tafsir, but it's definitely like it's a very popular oral story too. So it was. It's not exactly stated per se in the Quran, but it is like people say, "Oh, that's what it means," you know. So this is what I found very fascinating. Also ridiculous, but also fascinating at the same time, because the Bible has something like this too, where you actually like it was a brown cow or something like that or some cow that you had to kill to find out who the murderer is. So, oh yeah, so this is from Kashani. Let me just show you the tafsir as well too. So let me just present the tafsir. Stop screen. So it's from the commentary of Kashani, that is. So here it says, when you kill the living soul and dispute it thereon, an allusion to the elucidation, the reason behind the command to sacrifice a cow, which is that a rich old man from among the children of Israel had a son, a young man, and he was killed by two of his paternal cousins, or others as well, who coveted the inheritance he would have received from his father. They dumped him on the road somewhere between the dwelling places of the 12 tribes of the children of Bani Israel, and each denied his murder. The command then came to sacrifice a cow and strike him with parts of her to bring him back to life, so that he might inform them of his murder. The young man then is the heart, and the son is the spirit. So the young man and then.
Can you look at what Ibn Kathir and
Yeah.
Tabari
Let us-
says about
let's look
this?
Nasr and wisdom.
Can you go down? Because
Yeah, I
I'm
wanna-
beginning.
Yeah, I want to also like the Kathir. He says, disputed to this matter, when you killed a man, disagreement means some of them said you killed him and others said no, you killed him. This is also in Tafsir Abdul Rahman bin Zayd bin Aslam. But Allah brought what you were takutu means what you were hiding, and Allah said, strike him with a piece of it, and then he puts in brackets the cow, meaning.
Why is it in brackets here in the translation? Is it because they are adding it to the translation of Tabari?
Yeah.
So, sorry, I'm getting very suspicious here.
Yeah. Now, any part of the cow will produce the miracle if they struck the dead man with it. We were not told which part of the cow they used, as this matter does not benefit us or matters of religion. Otherwise, Allah would have made it clear. Instead, Allah made this matter vague. So this is why we should leave it vague. Oh my goodness. It means they struck him with it, and then he came back to life. This ayah demonstrates Allah's ability to bring him back to the dead to the life. Allah made this incident proof against the Jews that resurrection shall occur, and ended their disputing and stubbornness over the dead person. I wonder why we should use this method more often to solve murder mysteries. Allah mentioned is bringing back to the dead in the life in 5 instances in Surah Baqarah. First, Allah said, then we raised you up after that. Then He mentioned the story about the cow. Also mentioned the story of those who escaped death in their land while they were numbering the thousands. He also mentioned the story of the prophet who passed by the village that was destroyed, the story of Abraham and 4 birds, and the land that comes back to life after it has died. All these incidents are stories alert us to the fact that bodies shall again become whole after they were rotten. Proof of the resurrection also reiterated in Allah's statement. And then He just states this, and for a sign for them, we bring it forth again, they eat thereof. So He mentions it in other words, basically. So yeah, so this is generally the story is, Maududi even says, it's a similar method. Deuteronomy 21:9 confirms the interpretation of it, which is striking the dead body of a murdered man with a piece of a sacrificed cow.
All right. Then the sacrificed cow things is actually pretty prevalent in there.
It's prevalent, so it's like in
the tafsir. Yeah.
So, and again, this is also very popular in oral stories too. So
I just wanted to check the other tafsirs because sometimes it's just one tafsir that does it, and then it spreads in folk. Stories.
So now he can make the argument that the verse doesn't exactly say, but we've looked at 3 different tafsirs which does say that this is what it means. But let's see how he responds.
Signs that you might reason. So the story behind this is that someone was murdered and there was a bit of an Among Us murder mystery. Everyone was throwing accusations at each other and blaming each other.
That sound effect is mad.
Among Us.
They couldn't find out who was the culprit. So
is he making those sound effects?
They went to Musa alayhi salam to solve this murder mystery. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the Israelites to kill a cow. This achieved 2 things. Firstly, it showed the Israelites that there is no divinity in cows because there was 0 consequences to killing this cow. And it also showed Allah's power.
That was never the reason.
And omnipotence, because then He commanded them to strike the dead body with a piece of the cow. And then the murdered person truthfully pointed at who the murderer was. And so the murder mystery was concluded. At this point, 3 things were demonstrated to the Israelites. Firstly, there is no divinity in cows. Secondly, Allah can do anything, He is omnipotent. And the third thing is that Allah will always know the truth behind what people dispute about. So this was another miracle. I can't just grab a piece of steak and strike someone with it and expect them.
Oh my God, why does he? That's not exactly, it's a miracle. Okay, then what? He's going back to that route again, like, this is a miracle. We can't argue with this. Like, no, dude. Like, you have to, address, this is a silly story.
To come alive. No, this is not a general principle or a general rule. This is just a miracle that was like a one-off thing, If you want to believe in a miracle, again.
Sorry, what?
There was some strange video clip there before or in the middle when he was talking.
Yeah, it's like some dude. Yeah.
What was that? Was that just something that He has
Allah can do anything, He is omnipotent. And the third thing is that Allah will always know the truth behind what people dispute about. So this was another miracle. I can't just grab a piece of steak and strike someone with it and expect them to come alive.
Yeah, it's like someone grabbing a piece of steak and smacking someone with it.
All right, so that was what happened on that. Continue.
Yeah, it's like, it's the criticism is pointing to how silly the story is. But now you just said, it's a miracle from God, end of story. That's not a good response.
Alive. No, this is not a general principle or a general rule. This is just a miracle that was like a one-off thing, And if you want to disbelieve in a miracle, again, you have to first disbelieve in God because you can't use a miracle as a reason to disbelieve in God. And of course...
Oh, no.
That's not how it functions, but I would say that discussing this miracle isn't actually exactly that I'm saying it's miracle and thus the religion is silly. What I and others should be saying is that this miracle is unsubstantiated. There's no proof for this having happened.
Exactly. Like, There's no historical evidence that this miracle happened. And also, again, in defense of the Quran, I'll say this: it's not clearly describing what it's saying. This comes from the tafsirs themselves.
That's
It's more
true.
from interpretation. So the verse itself doesn't say anything about this. So I would have defended the Quran a lot better by saying, "Hey,
You could just say that's just tafsir interpretation
Yeah.
by later
yeah."
interpreters.
If anything, like that would be like, you could have defended the Quran a lot better with that Thais line of logic. But let's see.
Because this is a miracle, so it can't be in conjunction with science, otherwise it would cease to be a miracle. Next thing.
Simple instructions to follow.
Okay, yeah, that wasn't a debunking per se. It wasn't exactly a debunking. It was more so like, oh, by the way, this caricature is describing as the math flaws of inheritance. Also, like simple instructions to follow.
Follow until each relative knows who will get what in a will.
Okay, so this isn't really an error or anything like that.
Why did he blur that? Like, was there a woman there? Interesting. Why would you blur a woman?
That is just a personal criticism on the part of Saitan or the rationalizer. And this is a reference to Surah An-Nisa verses 11 and 12, where Allah subhanahu wa
Yeah.
This is something that Islamic jurisprudence had to do post hoc. They had to rationalize all of these various statements and give various contexts for why they were different.
Yeah. No, this is. I'll just read the
This
verse.
is post hoc rationalization, and one of the evidence is it isn't about just contextual things that didn't come with the Quran, but then evolved and just continued. It shows that all of the various traditions have various interpretations of what these various rates of inheritance actually mean.
And the thing is,
they didn't reach the same conclusion, so that kind of implies that it wasn't one tradition. There were, it was just these various contradictory statements, and then people afterward made up several traditions around it.
Well, keep in mind the Sunni and Shia interpretations, generally speaking, and also within their schools, had also very different interpretations of the inheritance.
Yeah, so that was my entire point.
Yeah. Now I'll read the verses.
Yeah.
This is what actually the verse that made me doubt Islam, by the way. The very first time when I read this. Allah instructs you to your children for the male what is equal to the share of two females. Now this is where I was like, why would God, and this is me as a 14, 15-year-old child reading this. Like, why would it be equal to two females? Like, this God doesn't make any sense. So, this is where my criticism would be. The very first sentence, and I'm like, okay, this makes no sense. But therefore, only daughters, two or more, for two of them is 2/3 of one's estate. And then there's only one. For her is half, and for the one's parents, to each of them is a sixth of the estate if he left children. But if he had no children, and the parents inherit from him, then for his mother is a 1/3. And if he had brother or sister, his mother is a sixth. And after bequest, may have a debt, your parents or your children, what they're nearest to you in benefit. These shares are an obligation by Allah. Indeed, Allah is ever wise. This is very wise. And for you, the half of what your wife leaves, they have no child. But if they have a child, for you is 1/4 of what they leave after any bequest they may have made or debt. And for them, and by the way, the debt is also a considering factor too, by the way, is 1/4 if you leave no child. But if you leave a child, then there's an eighth of what you leave after any bequest you may have made a debt, and if a woman or man or woman leaves neither ascendants nor descendants, but has a brother or sister, then each of them is a sixth. Why though? But if they're more than two, they share a third. It's weird. And after that, the math doesn't make any sense though. as long as there's no detriment. But this is an ordinance from Allah. Blah, blah, blah.
Allah Ta'ala explains all of the rules and mathematics behind, wills and inheritance and whatnot. And yeah, these verses are quite long and complicated, and I'm not even going to try to attempt to wrap my head around it. But yeah.
Why would you say that? Why would you say I'm not going to try?
He is actually right in this. Islamic wills and legal fiqh around this is extremely complicated.
Yeah, but like when you're responding to a criticism, you don't say that stuff. It's like, no, you're supposed to defend this. What are you doing?
It is quite difficult, but this verse never claims to be simple. And besides, the common person doesn't need to wrap their heads around this, because we have skilled sheikhs, we have skilled mathematicians, and we have intelligent people to actually.
This is the kind of bullshit that I also hear too. It's like, oh, we have sheikhs to do this, or we have. No, that's not what the point is. The point is that this is also, it's supposed to be simplified, yet this is as complex as it is. The verse is also complex. The math doesn't add up.
I mean, exactly. I mean, this makes it very hard for actually believers. And you also have the problem that everything comes post hoc when they try to rationalize everything of these things afterwards, and they end up with very different interpretations of this.
And there's different percentages that they end up with it too.
I mean, the best thing he could do now is just to say, this is complicated, I will concede the point.
Yeah, you could just concede the point. Anyway, let's
actually work this stuff out for us. And nowadays, we even have an online calculator for inheritance where you can just.
Oh no!
But those are just based upon certain interpretations, because you have several different traditions here.
Yeah,
this was actually a common issue of. This has become an enormous issue at several points in history when it comes to the inheritance laws regarding the usufruct right of the land that has been given to mosques, but that third parties have the right to use to farm on, and how these things are inherited. There were enormous issues because the Shafi'i tradition and the Hanafi tradition had very different views on how this should have been managed. So this created enormous issues during several periods of history.
Absolutely. And also, like,
I even know an enormous,
Yeah. Go ahead.
There are 3 cases I know. One from Syria, where since the Ottomans have now taken over and tried to introduce their Hanafi system, with enormous protests and issues coming from the Shafi, following Muslims there, it creates enormous issues because now the land wills are broken because they no longer have the inheritance rights of it.
Oh man, that would create so many issues.
And it goes back to being under the control not only of the mosque, but ultimately to the sultan to decide who should get the land.
Yeah. And also,
this lack of inheritance of the Awqaf in Syria leads literally to people that used to have a right to live on the land being evicted.
Oh no!
Which leads to a lot of consequences in the form of resentment towards the Ottomans.
Yeah, that makes sense because they would hate the Ottomans for introducing their version of the system. Oh
yes, man. And people get evicted from their farmland, and this farmland gets given to others, and this is the basis of a lot of issues during the Ottoman, the most recent century of their acquisition of the area of Syria.
But this was in the 19th and 20th centuries, right?
No. This was back after they had conquered it from the Mamluks.
Right. Yeah, that would be the 13th, 14th centuries, roughly speaking. Or 15th century. I could be wrong. Again, I could be wrong.
The Mamluk Ottoman War, it's the 16th century.
Oh, 16th century. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. But yeah, like he just said, "Oh," and the thing is, with his response, like, "Oh, look at this, like, take this will," and it's like, "Look, this link." It's like, no, you're not responding to this. You're not debunking anything. There's no debunking. I'm inventing the word debuncation or anything. No, nothing has been debunked. If anything, this is still a persistent issue. Especially the math. It doesn't add up.
Yeah,
details,
these
point how much
issues.
money you have.
There was
anything
also
instant-
during the Abbasid era.
Yes, yes,
Or
yes.
in that case, there was also the issue of because the Abbasids' interpretation of Hanafi jurisprudence was different from the Ottomans. So here it was still a question of inheritance. But what had happened there was that in the Shafi tradition, you can, during this era, you could divide the land usage rights of the Waqf. Because the Waqf wasn't considered divided. It was considered still to be the same Waqf. Because you can't divide a Waqf due to various advanced rules within the Shafi'i Islam. But the usage isn't the same as the Waqf. It's a separate agreement
And
of usage of it.
I
So you don't
remember-
divide it. So all the sons inherited the right of usage. All right?
Yeah.
But this was not the case if the jurisprudence was Hanafi based.
Right.
In that case, only one inherited it,
Mm.
the eldest son.
The eldest son.
Which, which caused issues when, the father, or rather, the father of the one that was the head of the congregation, had been a Shafi'i imam, and been based or faqih, and based his jurisprudence upon Shafi'i Islam. But the son decided, no, I'm going to follow the Hanafi school.
Oh no!
Which screwed up others in the congregation.
Oh no! Oh no! That's
which meant that they didn't inherit their land anymore.
Oh fuck! That's gonna lead to like resentment, like somebody getting murdered over this crap.
And then they actually, and then they did actually murder the oldest of the,
I'm not surprised.
Of the oldest of the brothers, and then they defended themselves that this was a conspiracy against them.
Yeah,
made by the leader of the congregation that had shifted into Hanafi Islam.
Yeah. I'm not surprised I'm not surprised that this murder happened, and like I know I'm not a defendant of murderers, but like dude was fucking asking for it at this point.
And the judge seemed to agree,
right?
But the question was if they'd given back of the land after this entire debacle.
Yeah,
the land usage rights would be enough.
And was it? What was the decision though of the judge at the end?
The decision of the judge was kind of. He decided that there would be a settlement. They wouldn't get persecuted for the murder.
Right.
But but a part of the land would get given back to the murdered people's sons, because he had also sons.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it weirdly makes sense. Again, from an Islamic context, makes sense from the time period. So, which I weirdly would agree with the judge on this one, because like the brother is in this case tried to screw up with the with his brothers, so to speak.
This was, by the way, in the beginning of the 10th century. This trial.
Interesting. This is an interesting trial and case study, and for the time period, this is a very interesting actually.
So they actually agree to give, because since he was connected also, normally if this had been a third person that had been killed, then he wouldn't have been able to pay off like this. But since he was connected to the Waqf system still, the eldest brother that was murdered, he technically was under the stewardship and as a legal person combined with the mosque.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So this was kind of like giving repayment back to the mosque, but
Yes.
also kind of acknowledging the mosque congregation's leader, the representative there, since he had shifted this entire thing without due notice or
Yeah.
even the agreement from the parties involved. He would also bear some, responsibility, so he wouldn't be able to get all the land.
Yes.
Yeah. So the land was kind of divided like it was previously, but somewhat in the favor of the murder victim.
Yeah.
More.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Anyway, yeah. Let's.
so they settled the issue eventually in order to avoid. But that was also with the stipulation that no further bloodshed would occur.
Yeah. That would be a necessary stipulation.
We
And also,
we didn't have the papers for if anything happened after that.
yeah.
I mean, you have to remember that this is very old texts from the
Yeah.
beginning of the 10th century.
Yeah, and this is, by the
So-
way, historical context too.
We don't not have all the records. We just have a
Yeah.
few.
You have a few of this case, and like, by the way, then this is where the not only the verse being like not helpful, but also the various schools' different interpretations causing more problems. So this is just one example amongst several examples. So again, kid, you haven't debunked anything. Just like just pointed to, oh hey, there you go. You're gonna go to this link. That's not how it works.
We find out how much money everyone gets according to Sharia law. So yeah, this is not an error of the Quran, and this isn't even something that
Oh my god, we just stated that. This is an error. This is a huge error.
Muslims say. Nobody ever said that the inheritance stuff is simple. Nobody said that. Next
It is. I'll give you that. It is complicated, but at the same
It
time,
is.
it has caused problems.
one.
The moon follows the sun, which then sets in the mud.
Okay, these two, bro, we hear them way too often. But yeah, firstly, the moon follows the sun, and this is in reference to Surah Ash-Shams, verses 1.
And yeah, by the sun and its bright and the moon that follows it. Yeah, you could argue the allegory, but here's the problem: the moon doesn't follow the sun. The sun and the moon are have different orbits, so to speak, even if they have orbits, because the sun's not exactly stable per se. But again, they come nowhere close to the Earth, and that's not how they function. They're not following each other. The moon doesn't follow the sun. The moon is actually has a different axis
Yeah,
1 and 2.
it's
Well,
it
Allah subhanahu wa
revolves
ta'ala
around
said,
around the Earth, because it's following the Earth's gravity.
Though again, if you are going to be, charitable, you could say that this is kind of like saying that day is followed by night.
You can, and that would be a better argument, so to speak. That would be a better. But let me see here what he has to say.
as by the sun and its brightness, and the moon that follows it. This one's simple, really, because it's referring to three things which are all true. The first is that
Well, two.
visually, from our perspective, the moon does appear to follow the sun. So, of course, an audience from 1400 years ago would have no problem.
But then you cannot make the argument that the Quran is for all time. Number one, and number two, this shows that
I
the
mean,
Quran.
he could say that it was just said to be understandable, like day is followed by night. So I will grant him this.
Yeah, I don't, because again, you argue that it's from a perspective which is one of the weakest in my opinion, because again, it shows a very geocentric point of view of the Earth, and this is definitely exposes that this is not written by a God, for sure. The God would have known that this is not a geocentric world. But anyway, let's go for it.
With this. They're just, okay, moon follows the sun. Yeah, that's true. And the next thing, does the moon literally follow the sun? Well, obviously not in the way that it looks. The sun and the moon obviously aren't both orbiting the Earth. We know that. However, technically the moon does follow the sun in a different way. We know that the moon orbits the Earth and is bound by its gravity, and we know that the Earth orbits the sun and is bound by its gravity. But what some people also don't know is that the sun is also moving itself. It is orbiting the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And because of that,
But just because the sun is moving doesn't necessarily mean the moon is following the sun. That's a different path altogether. Like, you're.
I mean, it does follow it because it's caught in the same orbit as
I
the
know it's
Earth
in
is caught to
orbit,
the sun.
but
But I mean,
worst
does the Earth, the Moon, and the
yes,
sun
that
is
would
caught in the same orbit around? I mean,
Yeah.
he's making very, very, out there interpretations once again from things that are very simple. But at least it is still coherent this time.
yeah. But here's the thing, though. It's not astronomically speaking. This is I would give him a fail on this, like in astronomy, because if especially to the author of the Quran, like no, that's not how it works. That is. So
I mean, I would just say that this is a fairly far-fetched interpretation, but fine.
I know you saying fine, but I'm like, no. I'm kind of mean on this one. I know I'm the bad guy here. So yeah, like it's like, yeah, sure, the sun has its own orbit, but like if it said something like the planets are following along with the moon and the Earth itself, then I would say, okay, yeah, this is okay. But no, this is too far fetched.
That we see the sun is moving, the Earth is following the sun because the Earth is moving with it, and because of that, the moon is also technically following the sun. Because if the sun wasn't moving, the moon wouldn't be moving.
And also, the verse would have said exactly what you've said, but it doesn't say that. It's only saying the moon follows the sun. That's it. That's all it's saying.
Anyways, now the
Yeah.
moon sets in the mud. This one is also very common, and it refers to
Now, this one, people tend to forget in this criticism that this is from the Alexander romances, legends, so to speak.
Let's continue.
Yeah,
We will get
So-
to it.
for context.
verse 86 of Surah Al-Kahf, where
So here it says, until when he reached the setting sun, as he found as of its setting. Now, dark water is a newer translation. That's not exactly what older translations said, because other translations said it was a muddy spring. Some translations say black pool, but the original, what English translations said, muddy spring, and found it near a people. And even the original legend of the Alexander romance, where this is from,
I would
says-
literally say it in a spring of mud. So yeah,
it says, yeah, it's a spring of mud.
Hamiyatin. في
man
عيني
called
حمية.
Zul Karnain was traveling until he reached the setting point of the sun, which was at the time a muddy spring. Now, this is not all implying that the sun sets in a puddle of mud. No, rather it just appeared so. And this is emphasized.
Here's the problem with it, kid. It appears so. This is, again, a weak argument. The largest, a spring is landlocked. A spring is not that big. It's landlocked. It's not a sea or a lake. If it were a lake or a sea that was mentioned, I would have given it that, because Lake Ontario is fucking huge. But no, a spring is so landlocked, even from the viewer of the eye. Like, the biggest spring is located in somewhere in New Zealand, and even that, it would look like, if you say it looks like that, the sun's going inside of the spring. So that interpretation is in itself very wrong. Yeah.
Spring and ein. It can mean spring. Ein can be both spring and eye.
Spring and eye.
Yes.
So it's setting into a muddy eye, or how would you translate that?
I'm going to be a little bit of a contrarian, devil's advocate here.
All right, give me back
And
this.
I could interpret this. I probably wouldn't, but you could interpret this as he found its setting in his in a muddied eye.
That's a bit far fetched, in a muddied eye. It's a bit far fetched, and it's like, where's the eye? Like, is there a giant eye, or what's happening? And I think that would go
in his muddied eye. It doesn't say his, but
Yeah, it would have said his, and also like it would have gone into more of the supernatural territory at this point. So, and even like the legend itself from the Alexander Romance legends, that they do say Muddy Spring as well too. So they never talk about the perspectives. So the perspective is the most common response, and it's a very weak response. Even Shabir Ali did that. But yeah, let's.
By the word used,
وجدها.
which implies perspective on what someone sees or senses, rather than something
So wajada, what does it mean?
that is
Perspective.
objectively true.
To find or to exist in passive.
It
To
seems
find
to find.
existing.
That doesn't mean perspective per se. It just means to find. So he
Yeah.
found it. It's not perspective. So that in itself is like clearly wrong.
True. It's just like when you're watching the sunset, right? It looks like it goes into the horizon.
Again, this is not what a spring looks like, though. This is not what a spring. A spring is more landlocked. So if it were a spring, I would be able to see the sun setting elsewhere, and the spring would be a lot closer to me. So no, this perspective would be very wrong here.
It looks like it goes into the mountain or whatever you're viewing it from. But obviously it doesn't actually do that, it just appears so. I mean, you could even use the same goofy argument against English speakers. Because we say that the sun sets, but obviously if you were to think of it scientifically like some nerd, you'd see that actually, the sun doesn't set because it's the Earth's rotation that causes the sun to appear as if it's setting. So actually, by saying sunset, you're wrong. Like, this is completely stupid. The sun doesn't set, it just looks like it, but that.
But here's the problem, though. That also is problematic. But
It isn't only that it sets in a a muddy pool. It's also that this is a very specific expression that seems to come from the Alexander.
The Romance, yes, and the Romance.
Yeah, the Romance from Alexandria, and I wouldn't say history, but Alexandrian mythology, legendary.
Yeah. And keep in mind, he went to the end of the earth too to find the sunset. So it's not so the mythology itself is him going to the very ends of the earth and finding it. So there's a place where the sun goes inside a pool or a spring. So that in itself goes to show that this guy, he's ignoring that he has traveled to the furthest end. And if you actually travel to the furthest end of the West, which is in the United States, I don't see any springs there or muddy springs there, no. And also, if it said just the sunset, he found the sunset, nobody would have been having a problem with it. But it's more specific. It's very specific in its description.
I mean, he could
That
just
doesn't
have
matter.
said.
It's just the way we say things.
I mean, God could have just said "ufq," horizon.
Yes, a much better explanation. A much better. Someone would have.
Or a thought.
Yes.
In the horizons or the distant lands far away.
Yes, that would have been a much better way to say, okay, I can be charitable on this. But no, this is very specific on a muddy spring. So no, and springs are not big. Springs are not like the sea. This is common water knowledge.
So you're dumb if you actually think that this is what the
No, you are dumb for this explanation, dumbass.
says.
No,
Next
people
one.
aren't dumb.
Earth is
Their
spread
arguments
flat.
are dumb.
The arguments are dumb, yes.
Because again, we shouldn't
Stars fall.
debate. Again, we shouldn't debase ourselves with ad hominem insults.
I know, but here's the thing. I'm the bad cop here, okay? I'm the bad cop. So, I'm mean. I'm gonna be mean.
Do you want me to bring the stick and the Samsung water?
Fine. All right. Okay. All right. So now he's gonna go to 81.2, which says
Liz.
Sons 81. It's okay. Let me just go to the start of the verse.
The earth is spread flat and stars fall as they should.
Oh no, he's gonna go there, isn't he?
Okay, the earth is spread flat. This one's talking about verse 53 of Surah.
Okay, so this said, he has made for you earth as a bed spread out, and inserted there for you roadways, and sent down from the sky rain produced here by categories of various plants. Okay, the earth is not like a bed, of course. That's a given. So let's see what his interpretation
Taha,
is.
where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, He is the one who has made the earth for you as a bed spread out. The Arabic word used
Spread
here
out.
is mahdan,
Sorry, what?
Spread out is. Let him continue.
saying
I will
that
just see.
Allah made the earth like a mahdan. So yeah, this is a simile. The word mahdan translates to bed or cradle. Some people even translate it as a carpet. And it seems that the typical interpretation of this is that the word mahdan is referring to the earth's crust as being a carpet or a bed, because the crust of the earth is relatively thin and it blocks a lot of the heat that's underneath the crust.
Okay, first of all, it's not talking about the crust. It's talking about the earth itself too. So if it mentions,
Generally, it's just bad.
yeah, and also if the verse mentioned about the core, mantle, and crust, then that discussion would come here. But no,
Though
the
it
verse,
doesn't say that it's spread out in that verse.
yeah,
In
It-
that verse. We might
Yeah.
actually gone back to it because there are other verses where they explicitly says that the earth is spread out.
yeah,
Like
The
flat.
earth is spread out. Hang on. let me spread.
This one doesn't, but others do.
Yeah, there's Surah Al-Hijr, which is I think chapter. What chapter is this? Yeah, 15 verse 1 says, "As for the earth, we spread it out." 15:19, and place upon it firm mountains, cause everything to grow in place, perfect balance. Again, as for the we spread it out. So this one says spread it out, 15:19, but this one just says it's like a bed.
And this is supported by what follows it. Allah says that He has set in the earth roadways and that He sends down rain.
He hasn't set the earth in roadways. I'm sorry, my guy. Humans created the roadways
From the sky, causing various types of plants to grow. Both of these things are things that are in relation to the earth's mantle or the upper layer of the earth. So for the plants, it's the dirt, and for the roadways, it's obviously the road, which is on the
Roads were created by humans.
outer layer of the earth. You know what I mean?
No, roads were created by humans. Stupid.
Yes, it's not.
The word mahdan is also
Though
Yeah.
general theology is that God allows people to do actions. He creates the actions because we want them.
Oh man, yeah, you can make that argument. Yeah, you can have some-
That's standard Maturidi interpretation.
yeah, I know.
And Ashari interpretation too. So yeah,
Okay,
I can give you that one.
Abide, calm down, Dudabites. Calm down, please. So no more burgers for you. Not for
I mean,
a while.
to be honest, his apologetics until now have really been Diet Coke.
It is. It's very Diet Coke. Yeah, it has been Diet Coke. But no, don't make me laugh again, please.
interpreted as implying safety and comfort for us, because the earth is relatively safe compared
No, it's not. It's not safe. Have you, bruh? We had to make this
Haven't you
place
seen
safe.
it? Humanity are the masters of this earth.
We had to beat nature to death to make this place safe. This is not safe. No other planet is. This is such a hostile environment.
The earth is like a bed for us to relax upon.
Listen, if I lie,
God has given us all the tools to make it so.
listen. If I lie, on the
Alhamdulillah.
glass, I'm gonna be bitten by bugs and shit. I don't want that. I do not want to be bitten by mosquitoes.
But
bugs.
remember, Mose, life is a test.
And so the test of the mosquitoes are tests. God damn it! I'm gonna die of like fucking malaria.
to other planets, especially with its crust covering the hot mantle and of course the
Mashallah.
magnetosphere,
Quiet, you. I don't think this is even relevant to this, but whatever. Why would you say that?
which protects the earth from solar winds and meteorites and things like that. And I understand that my defense of this verse might not be completely satisfactory, but other verses in the Quran can be used to address this.
Well, at least he admits that, though.
Such as again Surah Az-Zumar verse 5, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He wraps the night into the day and wraps the day around the night.
No, why would you repeat that? Why would you repeat that verse?
which implies circular and spherical motion, which can
No, it doesn't. It's about
No.
wrapping. It was
It just
talking.
implies that the night follows the day.
Yeah, we were just addressing that, dude.
Seriously, don't make this worse than it is.
My goodness, this guy is killing me. No, dude, that's not how it works.
can only happen with a spherical Earth. Now, the stars fall as they should. This is in reference to the start of Surah At-Takwir.
Okay, when the sun is put out, and when the stars fall down, and then the mountains are blown away, and pregnant camels left untended. Okay, so this is I know it's talking about Judgment Day, because I when I read about this verse, it's about Judgment Day. Now, this is also a very geocentric view, is that when the stars fall down, it's like the author is seeing stars as smaller objects, but in reality, the sun is a star. The sun is not a separate entity from the star. The sun is literally a star of its own. And it's a relatively smaller star compared to the other stars. So, and the Earth is very tiny compared to a star. So if a star fell, we are fucked. We are fucked. We're done.
Yes.
Where Allah
It's kind
states
of-
what will happen during.
Yeah, sorry?
But remember, they aren't meaning true stars. They're meaning like what we
They're meaning the
what
lamps,
we
aren't they?
colloquially call falling stars, like meteorites and like.
Boy, it's not a star. It's not a star. You're going to fail astronomy too. I am going to be your astronomy professor. I'm going to fail this. All right. Let's
The
continue.
moments preceding Yawm al-Qiyamah, or the Day of Judgment. And Allah says, when the sun is put out, and when the stars fall down, and when the mountains are blown away, and when pregnant camels are left neglected, and so on. A bunch of things that will happen during the last hour are mentioned. So this is referring to a phenomenon that, to our knowledge, is unnatural. This will happen during the final hour, in which presumably miraculous things and unnatural things will happen. So we cannot comment on the scientific improbability.
Oh no. So this has to be.
You could have just easily said that the falling stars are like meteorites, or you know, traditional what we are calling falling stars. You didn't have to go this entire way.
Yeah,
You really didn't.
That would have been a better interpretation, and like called the meteors or meteorites. Though of course I'll fail you in astronomy for that. But but I'll like in terms of theology, that would have been a pass. But no, this doesn't work.
Of these things happening, because these things will be miraculous. However, you could also interpret this as referring to the Big Crunch.
This is just an interpretation I made up in my head. I don't know if it's right.
Seriously, why?
Okay, I want to hear this.
Why make this?
Okay. I want to hear this. Okay, now you're being impatient. I need to hear this.
Scientific theory that proposes that the end of the universe will occur in an equal and opposite way to the start of the universe, or the Big Bang. In other words, the universe will very rapidly shrink until it's become basically just one little singularity. And this is compatible with the Quran, because in a way the stars will fall, according to the modern scientific understanding. I do need to stress again that these verses are referring to something that will happen on the Day of Judgment, so if it is completely scientifically inaccurate, then there's nothing for us to say about it, because this is...
First of all, it's not exactly, it's only a proposition, but there's no certainty. And second, like the way they explain it, it's very different. The universe collapsing on itself. And the way it's shown is that the stars are very big.
My issue with this is that once again he takes these very far-fetched, out there interpretations instead of making the much more easier ones that could have been used to defend this.
I know. He's just making it more complicated than it has to be. So he's going to use science.
Seriously, I would make a better, advocate for Islam than you.
Oh man. Oh yeah. I know what you mean, Jitty. I know what you mean. But like, this is such a bad, because again, this is one of the propositions. There's others, which is like it continues to expand.
Yeah, but I mean, I would just defend it. Swooping stars here is obviously meteorites and the like.
Yeah, meteorites would have been a better one. And again, the counter response, if again, assuming this is a debate, assuming a response would be, but these are stars, right? So again, that's you can go into that debate. But like this guy says,
Actually, in Swedish, we do have the word meteorite as a loan word, but this native Swedish word for it is falling star.
yes. No, falling stars used to be called meteorites. Used to be called falling stars too.
Oh, yes.
And that was for a long time until we realized meteorites or meteors aren't exactly stars per se, but they're just bodies of rock that
And
fall on the Earth or they travel. So that would have been a better explanation. But again, like I said, stars are fucking massive. One star would eat up the Earth alive.
I mean, they could have, used the term Naysak, which is the like modern Arabic term for meteorite. But I don't think that term even existed back then.
It probably didn't.
And my defense is how would God say a phenomena that these people at least know about, but using a more accurate word that wasn't invented? Of course, he would just say falling star.
Yeah, that's a possibility. But at the same time, a god could have explained it. He could have explained something like that, saying that this is something, or the god is intelligent enough to create a new word for it. Is God that dumb? No. Like a god would actually say that, yeah, this is a new phenomena. You will know of this. You will discover this. Kind of like a prophecy.
God guide us wherever he wants to guide.
Yeah, I know. He seems to want to push us into ignorance, like the Stone Age back.
But remember, your role as a human being on Earth isn't to know things. It is to praise God and submit to Him.
God damn it! Fuck. Now I'm pouring Zamzam water onto myself. Like, just making me more like, cringe. All right. Let's see.
A miraculous thing that Allah will cause. And also, the Big Crunch theory is not 100% proved. It's just a theory. And it's not as set in stone as the Big Bang theory. So we shouldn't conclusively say that this is what the Quran is referring to, because it could be that this is just not something that will happen. Now, the final line of this song.
Now, also,
I'm very glad that Mr. Satan is not here, because he would have made a joke about the Big Bang.
Yeah,
and made some sort of a sexual innuendo about it.
Of course, he would have made that. But again, that's his job. He's coming from hell. So
yes,
that's his from Gehenna,
the Christian hell.
He's coming from the Christian hell,
where all people are degenerates.
and we have it's more closer to Dante's Inferno version of hell, that one. So he's coming from there.
When you tell me hell will burn me and it makes me sad, I simply remember such ludicrous things as the Quran is easy to understand.
Oops. Yeah, again, this is more of a mockery, if anything.
Yes.
This is not exactly like...
And this is the rationalizer.
Yeah.
I actually think that this is a really effective ending to this song. I mean, I've just recorded this 40-minute video explaining all of these misunderstandings, criticisms, and misconceptions. So it would be dumb for me to sit here and tell you that the Quran is easy to understand. It isn't. But there are a few really good reasons for this. Before I get to that, the verse provided is actually verse 22 of Surah Al-Qamar, where Allah says that He has made...
And we have certainly made the Quran easy to remember, so there's anyone who will be mindful. Now, you can interpret this as people memorizing the Quran,
Yeah, it's dhikr.
But anything could be memorized, not just the Quran. So people can memorize.
But say that the Quran, with its rhymes, its structure, is pretty easy to memorize.
But then so are songs. Anything with a song or a rhyme, like I still remember Baba Black Sheep, or a song like La Tortura by Shakira. Even though I don't even speak Spanish, I know the lyrics of the song. So it's not a very strong argument.
Made the Quran easy to remember.
Look at here.
Also, do not make me sing La Tortura, please.
But look at this, for example.
Yeah.
The dhikr in the middle here. It is also followed by mudhakkir,
Mudhakkir.
which is being thoughtful or thinking upon it. It has it is you see how the kir here is reoccurring.
Yeah. It's kind of like sort of like make a structure, it's like a rhyming structure of sorts.
Yeah, and the Quran does this a lot.
Yes.
And it does this, intentionally.
Yeah.
I mean,
I feel
to
like
make it easy to memorize, I think.
I know it's more focused on the rhyme than reason, That's how I got my how I interpret the Quran. It's more rhyme than reason.
At least we can say that the Quran isn't without rhyme or reason.
It's still with rhyme, just no reason.
Yes.
All right. Let's see.
Not to understand. And indeed, like alhamdulillah, we have about 200 million Hafiz of the Quran. So this isn't even an issue. Like, this is just objectively true. The Quran is easy to remember. Now, there are a few reasons why the Quran isn't easy to understand. But firstly, I'll point out that yes, Allah does refer to the Quran as being clear, but clear does not mean the same thing as being easy to understand. By clear,
Oh no. Okay, but I was.
it's referring to the Quran as being a clear guidance with clear rules. The Quran never claims to be easy to understand, and it isn't. And this is because the Quran is the word of Allah. It's multi-layered and it has many, many meanings in almost every verse, all of which are relevant to different people from different eras, sometimes in different ways. So understanding it is bound to not always be easy. But this is why we have hadiths and tafsirs, which explain authentic interpretations of the Quran. And of course, we've also got modern scholars who interpret.
This is just a generalized statement, and also like many of these hadiths are contradictory to one another of the same.
This is why I hate, hate writing in Arabic in the comment section in YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, it looks good here in our view, but if you go to the YouTube view where I posted it into, the script becomes entirely messed up because I mixed.
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah, you're typing it, right?
Yeah. It's different on in the YouTube, but now, but on our StreamYard it works because it redoes it in a way when it comes up in our comments here. So it looks messed up on YouTube, but since Moose here has been so kind to actually point it out here, it becomes good here.
Yeah, no, that's
because StreamYard actually works in the comments.
Yeah.
In placing them in the correct order, which YouTube does not have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, that's why I kind of pointed it out. Like I just clicked on it, and so that people.
Yeah, good because StreamYard has their own comment section here that you can join into the chat here within StreamYard, and then you have the comment section on YouTube that is connected to StreamYard. I always post generally on YouTube comment section that then comes to the comment section on StreamYard. But in the YouTube section, it becomes messed up because the YouTube comment section here on comments on the live stream can't handle both Arabic and English.
Oh, it doesn't. Yeah, it cannot. This is an issue I found even in Facebook too. I found this issue in Facebook as well too. And it's like the order is really like,
it becomes messed up because the both Latin script and Arabic script have two very different orders of how you read.
Yeah. Now, here's
from left to right to right,
yeah.
to right to left.
Yeah.
They are
Especially
in the
like
opposite
when
direction.
I
So
like when I'm trying to also like respond to somebody who has an Arabic name, it just throws off the entire structure of the sentence because the Arabic is on the right, but then English starts on the left, and it's like, oh no,
yeah,
oh no, like my keyboard's all the way there now. Like now I have to type in the opposite. It's gonna look so weird. So yeah, it definitely is like just messes up the structure. But anyway, yeah, like he says, it's like it's like it's clear doesn't mean it's easy to understand. But here's the problem, though. It's supposed to be like the clarity has a big stake in it, which is, and there's this idea that, oh, it's so clear, this interpretation, but there's the problem comes with when you claim it's clear, nothing is clear. Like even the messaging, it's supposed. And the thing is, there's this rhetoric that, oh, you deny it because you know it's the truth. You're hiding the truth. That's why you deny it, despite you knowing the truth. And that's even the Quran, the Hadith, and many scholars, and like go on this rhetoric. And even some Christian scholars go on this rhetoric that you know the truth of Jesus, but you deny it. It's like, no. Here's the problem: that whether we know the truth or not, we don't claim to know the truth. We genuinely have genuine criticisms, genuine problems, genuine concerns. But but then you can't just have your cake and eat it too. Like it doesn't work both ways. Like you can't say, oh, it's clear, but no, you have to have scholars to interpret it. No, you can't claim both ways. And it cannot be for different times. Oh, it'll have different interpretations. Why though? I thought this was supposed to be the final fucking message for humanity. Like this doesn't make any sense. But I want to see what he finishes with.
The Quran from a more modern and informed perspective. The last thing I'll say about this is that this video being 40 minutes long makes the Quran seem really, really difficult to understand. But most of this video is just me talking about backstory. Like I'm not actually directly talking about misconceptions in a lot of this. I'm just giving backstory and I'm teaching you about things, right? So I could have explained these things much quicker. And also most of this is just stupidity and misunderstandings that I don't even need to tell you about, right? But I mean, if I skip through things,
you just did. You just addressed this. This is stupidity. Like, and of course, this is more of a mockery, that is. And this was a very, very bad, like...
I mean, the mockery was kind of bad, and then this response was not much better either.
Yeah. Like,
In fact, I would say that it sometimes was worse. It made even,
yeah,
Islam look worse.
Yeah, because again...
Yeah,
because again, even Sai 10 had got some of the verses wrong, right, in his video.
Yes.
So it's like, yeah, it wasn't the best kind of mockery either. So, like, for me, it's like he just went for low-hanging fruit. And at the same time, like, you didn't... And people saying, oh, mashallah, he's only 16, blah, 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 this white convert kid. Like, it's just, no, don't put him on a pedestal. He didn't do anything special. I'm not going to go easy on him. He was like, this was stupid. So yeah, like the responses.
I mean, be a little bit, merciful on him. He still is he's just a teenager.
Now,
right?
Here's the thing. Someone who's like, and again, I talked to this in my Guelph University. Like I did a lecture in Guelph University. Well, sort of. I was a speaker in Guelph University, and this is where I said, like, like I've known it's like the response is like someone who's of your background, and it's like I also see like the attitude of the Muslim culture that pisses me off a lot more, so I'm kind of also being a little more harsh, because
but
still,
this is still just a kid that has converted. No, I mean, we have to. I still think we should be a little bit charitable too.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know.
I prefer still, him doing this kind of stuff from doing what. Let's just say that people have had worse teenage phases and done a lot more.
Oh yeah.
Stupid things than this.
Yeah, I know. But at least like from an intellectual standpoint, I'm like, don't put him over the moon. Please don't put him over the moon. Like, it's like, and especially when I see people like praising.
I'm not putting him on the moon. I'm just saying don't be so harsh on him.
Oh no, not you. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the comment section.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah. I'm talking
but
about
so some of the comment section would just, you know,
it's just
take
like, you know,
any
when they
straw that exists and just, oh, good. A convert, a believer, a new believer. Yay. Encouragement.
Yeah, and it's like 16-year-old, and like it's like by a 16-year-old revert, and it's like, why are you putting him on a pedestal? Don't put him on a pedestal. This is not the best type of debunking. If anything, like, you know, there's a lot of the times he's like, oh, it's a belief. The overall, my impression was this was not very strong at all. Like, this was actually fairly, like, you know, weak. And again, we were weirdly enough giving him like the benefit. We were giving him more the benefit of the doubt, or we were trying to say stuff like, you know, this would have been a better result, like meteors, for example, with the falling stars, or like, you know, the night and day. Instead, you would just say they would have followed each other, or something like that. Instead of going this other direction, or with the meat one, just say, oh, the verse doesn't even talk about this, so it's just from tafsir. So those responses would have been a lot better than, you know, like the ones he gave.
Things, then people would probably complain about it. And also, we don't know Arabic, right? If we knew Arabic, this would be a lot easier.
If you knew, like, if we knew Arabic, a lot of the translations, like Ginny pointed out, would have come across as inaccurate. And
or you could have accepted other interpretations.
Exactly. So because
some of those were a little bit vague, like you know, like the insides of the cow.
Yeah, the insides of and also it says livestock. It doesn't even specify it's a cow.
Or livestock.
Yeah. So because it wasn't talking about a cow necessarily, and also
now I'm been confused during this time because I've looked at Arabic, looked at translations, tried to figure out what you were speaking about, and done all of the and what they were speaking about. And then cow. Yeah, we also had that about the cow, the meat revival, and
because like
where it doesn't even mention the cow in the story, but it mentioned in the tafsir, where you could just have said, oh, this is just tafsir stuff.
Yeah, so you could have just gotten away with, oh, this is just tafsir stuff. Or even with the one, you didn't have to go into the explanation of the cow, just say it's general livestock, right? Because
I mean, some of those tafsir there didn't even mention any cow.
Oh, in the story though, they do mention the
sacrifice. Yes. Some of the tafsirs did mention the sacrificed cow, but some of the tafsirs there, as when we looked at the various translations of them, didn't even mention the cow or the sacrifice at all.
Yeah, because even the verse never mentions the particular cow being sacrificed at all.
No, the verse itself. So they just mentioned God revived someone, and he pointed on the murder.
Yeah, and it doesn't go into detail.
Yeah.
So this could have been like, oh, this is just a vague detail, like, you know. So that would have been a better explanation for something like that. Again, this is just an example from his quote unquote debunking, and I'm like, I would have debunked this a lot better, you know. So, or Ginny would have debunked this a lot better. But yeah. Let's just
for a lot of this, I just have to explain Arabic to you and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, we have background knowledge,
this is the sort of stuff I've been doing. That is why I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah, I know.
To prove that you can do this actually better.
A lot better, actually.
And this is something also. I mean, we have to consider that, you know, this is pop religion. This isn't thought out high theology we are speaking about here.
Yeah, and especially, I think you mentioned in a video when you and Nick were talking about religions, that is, and you did say something like they weren't exactly very well thought out, so to speak. And I think I mentioned in a comment that, that I really agree with that. It's not very well thought out because they were an amalgamation of different ideas and beliefs matched together.
Yeah, but I would also say I've also talked about how when I studied like high theology, like the thinkers. And I said that these people were actually pretty smart. And you see it in how they argue, in how they, for example, discuss Greek philosophy when when, for example, Al-Maturidi does that, or when he discusses the neo-skeptics or the Salafists, so the neo-sophists.
Yeah.
And how he argues, you see that he is actually very grounded in philosophical traditions.
Yeah. Though philosophical traditions aside, the texts themselves, the verses, and also the original rules, they don't seem very well thought out. And like a lot of them had to come.
I mean, most theological traditions in almost all religions are something that are developed after the core texts are developed.
Yeah, and this has happened to both religions that are new and both religions of the past and the pre-past that we don't follow anymore. So none of them were very like bright, and if you kind of look at it from a logical perspective, like you'd have to throw logic out of the window.
I mean, religion is more, I would say, use the word myth, but in its original meaning, in the Greek sense, where myth was stories that are inspirational.
Yeah, and
stories that pushes people to action.
Yeah, I think these are supposed to like legends
yes,
that are like essential for the overall beliefs of the society or the values of society, that is. So but overall, like with back to the, I know we diverge a lot during this because there's so many intermingling, like interlocking layers to religion and philosophy and history, that is. It's fascinating. We can go on and on. But I know we spent like almost 3 hours on this one. My apologies, Ginny. Like I didn't we kind of went, I wanted to just finish this one because again it's we just wouldn't want to leave something incomplete. But
and we had promised to finish it.
Yes, we promised
to
finish
it. We did.
Yeah, and we finally did. I know it took us 3 hours, but hey,
and two episodes. Yeah,
2 episodes. So 5 hours we spent on this almost. But anyway, Ginny, do you have any like closing statements, wrap up, or any lasting impression of what we just were addressing?
Yes. If you are going to do apologetics, try to keep it to simple explanations. Short, simple explanations. Not only is it usually the much more direct things connected to what is actually written, it's also easier to do it rhetorically when you keep it simple. And it doesn't make you seem like a far-fetched apologist.
Yeah, I think Ginny just gave us the cookbook for the cult leader and prophet cookbook. But yeah, I agree with Ginny in that aspect. I know I know I'm gonna be very harsh with this one, and Ginny has the stick in the holy water. But yeah, I was just like very extremely disappointed, and especially when I see comments like like praising him over the moon for being like this 16-year-old and like, oh, he's but I'm gonna be just as harsh with him and say that this was like, I'll say words like this was just stupid, like at least in some of his responses, that is, and some was just low-hanging fruit, like this. It wasn't even best of side 10, or like, it's not even a great response. But for the certain responses with like Qiyamah, it'll happen in Qiyamah, or like something with supernatural elements, then I'm like, oh no, like there should have been a better response to this. But anyway, overall, thank you, Dude Abides. Yeah, thank you for the praises. Thank you, Ginny, as always, for being my opposite. And thank you. By the way, guys, again,
I do feel somewhat bad during these 2 episodes, because sometimes I get so mixed up in the things that I make the most basics of mistakes.
Not a problem at all.
I mean,
like, we mixed up translations. That's okay. Like, you were reading the Arabic, I was reading the translation. That's perfectly fine. And
Yeah, and I mean, sulb is obviously, lower region. It isn't the breast.
yeah, it's okay. Like we were, and also the palatable one. And I was like, wait, which one is he reading? So
there was Taroib that is, the breast. But
and also like the abundance and palatable were like, oh, now I realize like this is just a completely different word in the translation. Than
because I was wondering abundant. It's there, and then there was palatable. What are you speaking about? Drinking milk, but I mean, we do get milk from, various. So I was just arguing against you, but I didn't understand because I hadn't actually viewed the translation.
Yeah, and I think because the speaker said he read it from the translation itself, that's how I was responding to that as well. So so there was the criticism. So then you're like, oh, now that makes sense, and now you're like, oh no, I could have done a better job of this. So no, thank you, Ginny, again. Thank you, everybody, whoever was viewing this. I apologize for being late. I'll let you know. I'll announce whenever I might go next Saturday, if not the following. I'll keep you in the loop, Ginny, as well. And we'll see you next time. And again, I'm not going to be on Discord.
Translations. When I cite the Quran and I read from the Quran, I usually make my own translations.
Yeah. Because you're familiar with the Arabic, so
I mean, it's not to say that other translations are bad. Always, sometimes they are very good, but it's just I want to say what my interpretation of that verse is.
Absolutely, and this is why I should learn Arabic too. And my lazy ass hasn't learned it yet. Anyway, thank you, Juni, again. I won't be at Discord, but I'll probably do Discord next time. It's getting late. So yeah, Juni,
I will be at Discord, so we can see each other there.
Yeah, all right. Take care, guys. Have a good evening, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.